Chapter 1933. Qin Zhao had already gone home. There was basically nothing for him to do here. Anyway, Qin Zhao would let Alex handle everything. Anyway, Qin Zhao's request was for every main member of the scam to go to jail for 20 to 30 years. He would also squeeze all of their assets dry. Everyone said that evil people would be tortured by evil people. Qin Zhao didn't mind being that evil person. The next day, Qin Zhao received a call from Otis. Otis wanted to talk to him. After one night, Otis probably understood something. Would a super-rich person buy a $2 million fund? It was obviously impossible. Qin Zhao was clearly coming for them. The more Otis thought about it, the more afraid he became. Otis was going to be transferred to the prison in his district today. So, he wanted to meet Qin Zhao now. He wanted to find out more or make some deals. When Qin Zhao saw Otis, he no longer had any shrewdness. He looked at Qin Zhao with haggard eyes. "Mr. Qin, I want to know if we've offended you in any way." Qin Zhao smiled. "My subordinate's family bought a fund from you. Unfortunately, my subordinate isn't in L.A., so I have to take care of this." Otis was helpless. "Who's your subordinate's family? I can refund him the money." "It's too late. When I got involved, I didn't plan on resolving this peacefully." Smiling, Qin Zhao looked at Otis. "You and your accomplices must go to jail." Qin Zhao was confident, but he wouldn't tell Otis who Neri Winlancy was. Otis' face darkened. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Mr. Qin, do you have to make it so ugly? Are you threatening me that you have the power of the underworld? If it's violence, that's what I'm best at. Trust me, you have no chance of winning. Mr. Qin, you have family, right?" Qin Zhao looked at Otis. "Do you?" Otis didn't speak. Clearly, he realized that he'd said something stupid. "Okay, cooperate with the police. If you can get away with it within the scope of the rules, then I have nothing to say. But if you think that violence can solve the problem, I don't mind competing with you in violence." Qin Zhao stood up. "If you think threatening me with my family works, then I can have my family follow 10 or 20 bodyguards. But what about your family? Do you have that much money?" Otis' face paled. He realized that he really couldn't do anything to Qin Zhao. Nellie Winlancy stretched her body. The conditions here were indeed very good. Not only was the food and accommodation good, but the environment was also quite good. Nellie Winlancy walked around the place yesterday. She was a little confused about what this place was for. There was some equipment here, and it looked like a research facility. There were also warehouses and workshops. Nellie Winlancy got up to wash up and change. At this time, the sound of a car came from outside the window. The sound of Qin Zhao's sports car was quite loud. Nellie Winlancy went downstairs to welcome him. "Hello, Miss Neri." "Mr. Qin, you can call me Winlancy." "Okay, you can call me Qin too, or you can call me President like Klaus does," Qin Zhao said. "President? Then what exactly is this place for?" "You can ask Klaus if you have any questions," Qin Zhao said. "You just need to know that Klaus and I aren't doing anything illegal." "If it's not illegal, why do you have to be so mysterious?" "Klaus will have to explain that to you too." Qin Zhao entered the headquarters and Nellie Winlancy followed behind. Qin Zhao went to Jig's room. Jigs had been sharing a room with Maeve. It was convenient to take care of her. When Qin Zhao knocked on Jig's room, Jigs had just woken up. "Mr. Qin." "Yes, Maeve needs to change her water. Also, I need to give her a checkup." "Okay." Qin Zhao and Jigs started operating the equipment. In the past few days, Jigs had gradually familiarized himself with how to use the equipment. "Do you need my help?" Nellie Winlancy asked. "No, just the two of us are enough." After the equipment was turned off, Qin Zhao and Jigs lifted Maeve out of the container. Nellie Winlancy watched from the side. "Mr. Qin, are you a doctor?" "Yes, but I don't have a license," Qin Zhao said. "Mr. Qin, Maeve opened her eyes yesterday," Jigs said. "Did you talk to her?" "I'm not sure if she's awake. Her injuries are basically out of danger now." You don't have to soak her in the container anymore. As for her psychological problems, you'll have to help her. During this period of time, Jiggs had personally witnessed Maev's unrecognizable body gradually recovering from its previous state. Some obvious injuries were also recovering during the soaking. Therefore, he had absolute trust in Chen Zhao now. After checking Maev's injuries, Chen Zhao met Jig's gaze. After a moment of silence, he said, "She should have woken up a few days ago, but she doesn't want to talk. Or rather, she doesn't want to face reality." "Then, what about now?" Chen Zhao nodded. Maev was actually awake right now. Jiggs couldn't control his emotions anymore. He knelt by the window. "Maev, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all because of my uselessness. Let's go out first. You guys talk." After Chen Zhao and Nellie Wenlancy walked out of the room, they could hear people talking inside. A moment later, Jiggs hurriedly ran to Chen Zhao and Nellie Wenlancy. "Miss Neri, can I borrow a set of your women's clothes?" "Huh! Of course." A while later, Jiggs helped Maev to Chen Zhao. Maev's injuries were 80% healed. The only problems now were the scars on her skin and her psychological trauma. Maev's face was pale. After all, she'd been soaking in the water for almost 20 days. Her limbs were also very weak. Actually, she'd woken up earlier than Chen Zhao had expected. "Mr. Chen, thank you for saving me that night." Maev's voice was weak. "I'm sorry that I couldn't get there earlier that day." "No, it's not your fault. No one could have predicted that." "It's my fault. I couldn't protect Maev well." "Maev, I can call you that, right?" "Of course." Maev nodded slightly. "As an outsider, I still hope that you can let go of the past. Jiggs has been watching over you without rest. It's not a beautiful memory, but it's not enough for you to ruin your life." Chapter 1934. Chen Zhao wasn't someone who knew how to comfort others. He only felt sympathy for Maev. He didn't have much personal feelings for her. That was all he could say. Plus, he wasn't that familiar with Maev. Hearing Chen Zhao's words, Maev nodded slightly. Nellie Wenlancy didn't know what exactly had happened. But looking at Maev's injuries, she could more or less understand how hurt she was. "Jiggs, I'll prescribe some medicine for Maev. Some for oral use, and some for external application. You'll be in charge of applying the medicine on Maev. Also, if there are any changes in Maev's condition, you can call me." "Okay, got it. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving," Chen Zhao said. "Miss Neri, Maev has just recovered. Can you accompany Maev for a while?" Sure, no problem." "Oh, right. Ms. Wenlancy, your problem has been solved. Those people will go to jail soon. You should get your money back soon." Nellie Wenlancy was surprised that Chen Zhao had solved the problem so quickly. Nellie Wenlancy could tell that they weren't bad people. Aduz helped Maev find a wheelchair. Nellie Wenlancy pushed Maev for a walk beside the man-made lake. "The scenery here is really good, but the weather these 2 days is a bit bad," Nellie Wenlancy said regretfully. "If the weather is good, it'll be even more beautiful." "There's never a good day here," Maev said. "Maev, let bygones be bygones." Nellie Wenlancy thought that Maev was hinting at her feelings. "I'm serious. The weather here has always been like this." "Haven't you always been? I've been awake for more than 10 days. Every day, Jiggs opens the curtains and windows to let in fresh air. It hasn't rained in the past 10 days, right? I don't remember having more than 10 consecutive cloudy days. That's the only cloudy days I'm talking about." Nellie Wenlancy looked up and realized that the dark clouds in the sky were indeed only covering the nearby area. They didn't cover a large area. "Weird," Nellie Wenlancy murmured in confusion. "What's this phenomenon? It's not natural." "Then what? If I said it was controlled, would you believe me?" "Miss Maev." Nellie Wenlancy wondered if Maev was mentally unstable. Otherwise, why would he say such illogical words? "Do you think I'm insane?" No. Nellie Wenlancy quickly denied. It's natural for you to think that way. Normal people wouldn't take my words seriously. Nellie Winlancey looked at Maeve in confusion. Maeve's words weren't messy, but rather clear. Although I've been unconscious all this time, I wasn't actually sleeping, Maeve said. Nellie Winlancey was even more confused. Maeve's words always sounded mysterious. Not sleeping? What are we going to do then? I'm listening to all the sounds here. There are many secrets hidden here. I still don't understand. I didn't understand it at first, Maeve said. Mr. Chen said that there are many secrets here. Let's go back to the headquarters. The wind here is a little cold. Oh, okay. Back at the headquarters, Maeve suddenly said, There's an elevator over there. Nellie Winlancey didn't understand, but she still followed her request and pushed Maeve to the elevator. What's wrong with this elevator? This is the elevator to the basement. Basement? Yes. Curious, Nellie Winlancey pushed Maeve into the elevator. And then? Lower 3 floors. When they reached the 3rd floor, the elevator door opened. Nellie Winlancey realized that there were people down there. There were many glass houses here too. A dozen of them had people locked inside. Nellie Winlancey was shocked. What's going on? Who are they? Prisoners. Mr. Chen's prisoners. Nellie Winlancey gulped. Would she encounter any danger after entering this place? If Qin Zhao knew that she was here, would he lock her up too? Or was it to silence them? Are you scared? Maeve asked softly. This is illegal detention, right? Nellie Winlancey asked uncertainly. These people aren't under the protection of the law, Maeve said. Nellie Winlancey pushed Maeve to a glass house and looked at the prisoner inside. The prisoner was an old man. He glanced at the 2 women outside and then calmly lay back on the bed to watch TV. The glass house wasn't bad. It wasn't big, only a dozen square meters, but there was an independent bathroom. There was also a single bed, a single sofa, a table, and a TV hanging on the wall. Nellie Winlancey also realized that the book on the table had strange words on the cover. She actually couldn't recognize which country it was from. All the prisoners here were very calm. Some of them didn't even bother to look at the 2 women outside. Who are they? Nellie Winlancey asked. When Nellie Winlancey pushed Maeve past the room, she suddenly saw a man standing in the floor-to-ceiling window. The man's eyes were lifeless and had dark circles around them. He looked like he hadn't slept in decades, but he kept staring at Nellie Winlancey and Maeve. Nellie Winlancey was a bit dazed. She stared at the man inside. Nellie Winlancey suddenly felt pain on the back of her hand. Maeve had pinched her hand. Don't stare at his eyes. Just then, a white-haired old man in the next room said, Are you new people? What happened to me? Nellie Winlancey didn't understand. But she also felt that something was wrong. She'd actually stared at a strange man's eyes for so long. Off it, you're too meddlesome. I almost succeeded. The man who'd almost bewitched Nellie Winlancey with his eyes said unhappily, Don't you want to escape? I'm different from you. We'll only be locked up here for 3 years. It's already been half a year. If you escape from here without permission, you'll have to face that man. Do you really think you can escape from here? I can't beat him, but as long as I leave this room, no one can stop me no matter where I go. Chapter 1935. Offit glanced at the 2 women outside the glass room. This isn't a place you should be. Offit was in a good mood. After all, she and her partner weren't sentenced to life imprisonment. Let's go, Neri. It's indeed dangerous here. Aren't they locked inside? Why is it dangerous? Even if they're locked inside, they're still dangerous. The glass could block most attacks. But these people weren't normal people. The consequences of underestimating them were severe. Even Maeve only understood a little. Maeve didn't know what situation she was in either. She could hear everyone's conversation in the entire headquarters. Of course, that included the people in the dungeon. It seemed that the barriers of the buildings and distance didn't work on her at all. But that was as far as she could go. She could hear them when she was unconscious. But at that time, she'd unconsciously accepted the sounds outside. It was also these sounds that had woken her up. After waking up, she was more subjective in her selection of sounds. She could control herself to only listen to a certain sound. As long as it was within a certain range, she could hear everything. She also found out from the conversation between the members of the supernatural organization. There was a spiritual world in this world that she didn't know or understand. She seemed to be a member of the spiritual world too. Of course, she'd also heard about Qin Zhao. Whether it was the members of the organization or the people in the dungeon. When they talked about Qin Zhao, there was only one topic. Scary. This was the topic she'd heard the most about Qin Zhao. At the same time, she also knew that Qin Zhao wasn't as kind as he seemed. Just then, the elevator door opened again. Aduz pushed the food cart in. When he saw Mayev and Neriwan Lancy, he only nodded. Aduz didn't say anything else regarding their appearance here. After all, Qin Zhao had told him to let them go wherever they wanted. Mr. Aduz, hello? Neriwan Lancy was still a bit nervous. She knew nothing about this place or the people here. Hello? Aduz said. It's not very safe here, so it's best not to come down. Mr. Aduz, why are they locked here? As a normal woman, Neriwan Lancy still couldn't understand this. After all, whether it was from a moral or a legal perspective, this was not allowed. They did bad things, that's why they're locked up here. But, can you detain people at will? Not necessarily. Only under certain circumstances, Aduz said calmly. They are all under certain circumstances. Aduz leisurely distributed lunch to everyone in the glass house. Then he walked up to Mayev. Lady Mayev, can you see them? Yes. Mayev knew what Erdos was talking about. Aduz had 2 wraiths with him, and they were talking to each other. Mayev wasn't surprised by this at all. Back upstairs, Neriwan Lancy asked impatiently. Mayev, Aduz asked you who you could see just now. That is the biggest secret here, and I happen to know it. Surface secret? You still don't understand? Understand what? Everyone here is not an ordinary person, Mayev said. Also, there are far more people here than you see. There are others who will make your hair stand on end. I still don't understand. Wraiths, just like what you think. There are a lot of wraiths wandering around here. Stop joking. Neriwan Lancy's expression was stiff. Mayev didn't sound like she was joking. That's what Aduz asked me just now. He asked me if I could see the wraiths wandering around him. Are you serious? Of course. Neriwan Lancy was skeptical about Mayev's words. After all, she couldn't accept it immediately without seeing it with her own eyes. Also, Mayev's emotions weren't stable. Neriwan Lancy couldn't be sure if Mayev was normal. Then why can you see him but I can't? I heard people here say that the awakening of a witch is divided into life and death trials. I might have awakened because I passed one. What's a life and death trial? I'm not too sure about that. Everything I know is from the conversations of the people here. Mayev paused. But the first inhuman I saw wasn't the race here. It was Mr. Qin. Mr. Qin? He's not human? Neriwan Lancy asked in surprise. He's human, but he's not an ordinary person. Mayev fell silent again. After a while, Mayev said again. A group of armed bandits broke into my house. Then Mr. Qin came and killed them all alone, saving my husband and I. I was heavily injured, but I could still hear the bandits' screams. But he's not a cop. When I was in danger, it wasn't the police who came to save me. So you're saying that there's some kind of unconventional organization here? More accurately, it's a paranormal organization. This place is called the Supernatural Organization, and Mr. Qin is the leader of the organization. But I still don't see him. Because you're an ordinary person, Mayev said. You said you're an awakened witch? So other than seeing wraiths, what else can you do? Me? What can I do? Mayev fell into deep thought. She didn't know any magic yet. But subconsciously, she believed that she was more than that. He could receive a lot of sounds, so his magic power was most likely related to sound. Maeve opened her mouth slightly. She realized that she could actually make super high-frequency sounds. Humans couldn't hear them at all. Maeve looked at the glass window in front of her. The high-frequency sound shot toward the glass. Crack! The glass window shattered at the sound of the noise. Do you see that cracked window? That's what I did. You did? How did you do that? Nellie Winlancey still didn't want to believe it. After all, seeing was believing. Look carefully at the glass next to you. Maeve opened her mouth again. Maeve felt that her abilities weren't limited to this. So this time, Maeve raised her voice. Crack! A crack appeared on the second piece of glass as well. Moreover, the cracks on the glass window were very dense. Do you see it? Nellie Winlancey saw the crack with her own eyes. She couldn't help but rub her eyes. She still couldn't believe it. Chapter 1936. The glass, which hadn't cracked a moment ago, was now covered in cracks. But now, she had doubts again. Did Maeve really do this? Or was there a device on the glass? Nellie Winlancey looked at Maeve in confusion. Is this the magic you were talking about? It's different from what I imagined. In Nellie Winlancey's imagination, magic was the kind of dazzling and colorful things in movies and TV shows. She had to admit that Nellie Winlancey's thought was surprisingly similar to Qin Zhao's. But in reality, most magic wasn't colorful. It wasn't that it couldn't achieve the effect. But light and shadow also needed energy. This meant that the effect would weaken. So, unless it was necessary, there wouldn't be any beautiful effects. Most of the time, the so-called dazzling effects were produced by the construction of magic arrays. But Nellie Winlancey and Maeve didn't understand this. What a magical power! This is my first time using it. Maeve looked at her thin hands. Maeve tried a few more times, but it wasn't pure magic. But even so, Nellie Winlancey was already stunned by what she saw. She finally believed that there were things she didn't understand in this world. Are there really a lot of spirits around? Nellie Winlancey asked. Maeve nodded. A lot. Will they attack us? No, they're also members of the Supernatural Association, Maeve said. Their leader should be a spirit called Pamela. Nellie Winlancey still shuddered. So that's the secret Klaus was hiding. Klaus touched his nose and held the phone. Do you know? Yes, I know. On the other end, Nellie Winlancey said. I saw an unimaginable power. Who showed it to you? There shouldn't be anyone else in the headquarters apart from the president, right? Did he show it to you? No. Do you remember Maeve? Oh, the injured woman? Klaus was dazed. Is she awake now? Yes, I do. Nellie Winlancey heard some noise on the other end. Klaus, what are you doing? Roar. I'm saying I'm fighting. Do you believe me? Fighting? With whom? Not human, Klaus said. Then am I disturbing you? It's okay, it's not time for us to appear yet. Klaus held the phone between his shoulders as he paid attention to the battlefield. Although the battlefield was constantly changing, Klaus and the people from the supernatural organization were at the back, so the battle at the front didn't affect them. Then you go ahead. Call me back when you're free. Nellie Winlancey did not dare to delay Klaus. All right, I'll call you later. Klaus hung up. What's wrong? Nami asked. It's nothing. Klaus shook his head and returned his attention to the battlefield. At this moment, the battlefield was shrouded in darkness. However, there was an instrument in front of them. The instrument had many red and white dots. There were fewer red dots, about 100 or so, while there were many white dots, reaching tens of thousands. Mr. West, when do we attack? Klaus asked. There's no rush. Even if we kill 100 normal spirit beasts, they won't be worth as much as one leader spirit beast. So, rather than wasting magic power on normal spirit beasts, we might as well choose the right time. The white dots on the instrument were spirit beasts, while the red dots were human spiritualists. However, human spiritualists were clearly stronger than spirit beasts. and the number of spirit beasts far exceeded the humans. It was hard to say who was stronger, because both sides were preserving their strength. As long as the spirit beasts were killed, they would turn into spirit light. More and more spirit light appeared in the air, almost lighting up the entire battlefield. At this moment, 2 gigantic spirit beasts appeared from the back of the battle line. The 2 huge spirit beasts were leader spirit beasts. They did not enter the battlefield directly. Instead, they opened their mouths and started to devour the spirit light released by their dead comrades. "They're here." Wes stared at the 2 leader spirit beasts. On the other side of the battlefield, the guardians and managers stood on high ground. They were also looking down at the battlefield. Sivir clenched her fists. Irene Horton sat lazily on the ground. "These invited spiritualists don't seem very strong," a girl in red said. The girl in red, Rose Twilight. She was a genius girl, known as the most outstanding genius of the new generation. She was even more outstanding than the Scarlet Church's 25th generation Blood Mary. She came from a famous magic family in Europe, the Twilight family. Since she was 8, she could already carry out difficult missions on her own. "The real experts haven't attacked yet," the man standing at the front said. The man standing at the head of the table said. He was the only manager recognized by the Nature Guardian, and he was also the one who could borrow the most draconic power. His name was Malin, and in ancient Greek, Malin meant Titan. And he indeed had the blood of a true Titan. It was precisely because of the Titan's bloodline that he was able to withstand such a huge amount of dragon power. And after his Titan power merged with the dragon power, he could almost reach 30% of a real dragon's power. Experts? Really? A white-bearded old man wearing thick reading glasses said. The white-bearded old man was called Sarah. He was originally a volunteer for ecological protection. He was seriously injured in an accident, and was saved by the witch doctor of a local tribe. That tribe worshipped the poisonous dragon. They saw the poisonous dragon as their god. Then, the white-bearded old man accidentally received the poisonous dragon's recognition and was given new power. He also became one of the 6 guardians of order. Yes, Sivir said. 2 days ago, he single-handedly defeated the speed-enhanced type spiritualist hiding in the gathering area. He's very powerful. Strange, why hasn't he done anything yet? Sivir was originally an ordinary witch. She was different from the others. She didn't have extraordinary knowledge, a strong family background, or outstanding talent. But she was the only one who accepted the Guardian's test and passed. So she also became one of the 6 Guardians of Order. Just then, the sky above the battlefield suddenly lit up. It was very, very bright, as if it was daytime. A girl floated in the air with one hand raised high. Her raised palm was holding a small sun with a diameter of 10 meters. Chapter 1937. The little sun lit up the entire battlefield. Little sun? That's from the Holy Fire sect? Malone stared at the little sun in shock. This spell was too iconic. The little sun was a spell unique to the Holy Fire sect. It wasn't something normal people could come into contact with. Sivir looked at Jocelyn and Nash in surprise, even though they were far away. She was far away, but she could still see Jalanash clearly. She hadn't talked to Jalanash before. But she still remembered that Jalanash was from the Supernatural Organization. She came from North America. Magri Modric was also on the battlefield. He looked up at the little sun in the sky. This spell was stolen from him by the Supernatural Organization. Therefore, when he saw this spell, his heart could be said to be filled with mixed feelings. Jalanash's spell was even more powerful than his. It was obvious that Jalanash's magic power was much higher than his. Jalanash looked down at the battlefield from above. She needed to estimate where the little sun would land. If she threw it at the center of the battlefield, she could achieve the greatest result. But at the same time, it would also affect their comrades. There was no such thing as sacrificing oneself for the greater good on the battlefield. No one wanted to sacrifice themselves here. So if she threw the little sun down, she would basically offend half of the spiritual world. Jalanash didn't want to cause trouble for the supernatural organization. Not only did the people on the battlefield see the little sun in the sky, 2 chief-level spirit beasts appeared at the edge of the battlefield. They also saw the little sun and Jalanash. One of the leader-level spirit beasts opened its mouth wide. It started charging, gathering the spiritual light it had just absorbed in its mouth. This move was very similar to Qin Zhao's holy light cannon. But the chief-level spirit beast took a longer time to charge. Of course, it was more powerful too. Qin Zhao's holy light cannon could be fired at any time. But the power was limited and the range was only a few dozen meters. But the chief-level spirit beast had already started charging from 2,000 to 3,000 meters away. "Oh no," Sivir said anxiously. "That girl released such a large-scale spell in the air. She's an open target." They were 2 to 3 kilometers away from the center of the battlefield. They couldn't save her in time even if they wanted to. She must have never fought against spirit beasts before, so she doesn't understand their characteristics and abilities. Malone said. "What a pity. If she hadn't been so reckless, she would have become an outstanding warrior." Jocelyn and Nash also realized that they were being targeted. However, she was not anxious about this, because her companion was nearby. At that moment, West said to Helis, "Helis, go protect Jalanash." "No problem." Helith leaped up. There was a black cloud under her feet. This black cloud was the aura of death. This was a new method that Helis had come up with after returning from Norway. Just like the immortals of China, they stepped on the clouds and chased after the stars and the moon. She also became another member of the association who could fly after Gaia, Norma, Jolene, and Nash. Helis came to Jalanash's side. Jalanash was still forming a small sun. However, it was not strenuous for her. Under the influence of the fire dragon's calamity, Little Sun's consumption of magic power was halved, and its power doubled. Fire dragon calamity was created from the heart of a fire dragon. Its amplification of fire-type magic reached a shocking level. "Helis, the black cloud under your feet is really interesting." Just then, the distant leader-level spirit beast fired its mouth cannon. A beam of white light broke through the night sky and headed straight for Jalanash. "It's over." Malone shook his head. "That girl might be able to block that attack in her normal state, but in her current state, she probably won't be able to escape." The others around Malone had the same expression on their faces. Of course, they hoped to have more powerful helpers. The stronger the better. However, they hadn't expected something like this to happen. Just then, a black cloud enveloped Jalanash. Apart from the small sun's light that could still penetrate the black cloud, she couldn't see anything else. The strong beam of light shot into the black cloud and disappeared without a trace. It didn't penetrate the black cloud, nor did it cause an explosion. It was as if nothing had happened. Helis' aura of death had the ability to absorb energy. Of course, the aura of death had a limit. If it exceeded the limit, the aura of death would directly dissipate. However, there was no need to worry about this battle. The 2 leader-level spirit beasts weren't that powerful. Just then, the black cloud suddenly spread out. The small sun didn't shrink. Instead, it grew larger. Malone and the others were all shocked. "Necromancer?" One had to say that this battle was full of surprises. And the surprises came one after another. Sivir's expression was one of shock. She had originally thought that the supernatural organization from North America only had an elite, no matter how powerful they were. In such a large area, 1 or 2 experts wasn't enough to shock her. But then, Jalanash and Helis' appearance shocked her once again. At the same time, Jalanash finally finished preparing her spell. The small sun shone brightly like a real sun. It fell like a mountain. However, the small sun didn't fall vertically. Instead, it pointed diagonally at the 2 leader-level spirit beasts. The spirit beasts on the battlefield could feel the sun's light. Their strength was suppressed by at least 20%. Even though it didn't hit directly, just the light alone was enough to change the tide of the battle. Rumble, the small sun finally fell to the ground. In that instant, the earth shook. Destructive shockwaves swept in all directions. Magri Modric's expression completely froze. This spell was passed down from his hands. But why was it in Jalanash's hands that it displayed miraculous power? At the place where the little sun had landed, everything within a radius of 1,000 meters was obliterated. Everyone stopped what they were doing, even those who were fighting. The destructive power scared everyone, including Jalanash. Helis looked at Jalanash. Your spell is so destructive? Even if Helis' death spell was 100 times stronger, it couldn't reach Jalanash's level. It's not my power. Jalanash shook her head. It's the power of the Fire Dragon Disaster. The Fire Dragon Disaster contains a huge amount of fire elements. As my spell is released, it attaches to it. It will take at least 3 days for me to unleash such destructive power again. Chapter 1938. Jalanash landed on the ground. Wes walked up and asked, Did you kill it? 1 dead and 1 injured, Jalanash said. Helios is dealing with the aftermath. Not long after, Helios returned in less than 10 minutes. How was it? Done, Helios said calmly. It's just a small fry, and it was heavily injured by Jalanash. If I can't deal with it, it'll be too embarrassing. As for the others, they went to participate in killing the spirit beasts. After losing their leader, the spirit beasts started retreating one after another. It seemed like other than the 2 leader spirit beasts, they had other commanders. The retreating spirit beasts were no longer a threat. Some of the weaker spirit controllers could now slaughter the spirit beasts without any worries. The supernatural organization had killed the 2 spirit beasts themselves, so they definitely had the most achievements. However, killing some small fries would also allow the association members to vent their anger. At this moment, Magri Modric arrived at the area where the association members were fighting. He was worried about being misunderstood, so when he got close, he deactivated the protective spell. After all, they were on the battlefield and the situation was very chaotic. Many times, because of nervousness, they might hurt their own people. Therefore, every organization and force basically had their own territory. No one interfered with each other in case they were misunderstood. If they wanted to get close to someone else's territory, the first thing they had to do was remove their own defensive spell to show their sincerity. Magri Modric came to the area around the members and slowed down. Mr. West, hello? Hello, Mr. Magri. This is a battlefield. It's not a good habit to run around. Magri Modric's gaze searched around and finally landed on Jalanash. Hello, Miss Jalanash. What is it? Jalanash wasn't very willing to talk to Magri Modric. Magri Modric wasn't weak at all. But Jalanash just couldn't stand Magri Modric. Last time, Magri Modric had brought people to cause trouble for them. If they hadn't agreed to let them go, everyone, including Magri Modric, wouldn't be alive now. Miss Jalanash, was the spell you just used really little sun? To be honest, the power of that little sun was beyond imagination. Magri Modric felt that Jalanash must have found a trick. That was why he decided to come over and learn from Jalanash, to see if he could get any tips. Everyone immediately understood Magri Modric's intentions. You don't have to think about it. That's the amplification effect of a magic tool. Jalanash's answer was within Modric's expectations. Even if Jalanash was stronger than him, she couldn't be more than 10 times stronger. Therefore, it was acceptable if it was enhanced by magic tools. But even so, Magri Modric still felt that this group of people really shouldn't be offended. These organizations that came from the Magic Desert were all extremely strong. Modric didn't want to clash with such a powerful organization. Right at this moment, a few obviously powerful auras spread over. The owners of these auras had deliberately released their auras in order to warn the crowd of their arrival. Then, a huge carpet fell from above their heads. There were 7 people standing on the flying carpet. Everyone knew one of them. It was Sivir. After the 7 people got off the flying carpet, it turned into a cloak and returned to the back of one of them. Malone led the way to the people from the association. Hello, I'm Malone, also the manager of the gathering area. Hello, we're from North America, the Supernatural Organization. There's such a powerful supernatural organization in North America? Malone sounded like he was asking, but also like he was doubting. Perhaps he felt that the supernatural organization was a disguise. Of course, everyone just smiled and didn't say anything. No one had the obligation to answer questions from unrelated people. Everyone, after the battle, there will be a gathering in the gathering area. Would you be interested in joining? We're very tired. We need to rest. West tactfully rejected Malone's invitation. Are you here for the Nature Guardian's promise, or the Scarlet Church's mission? Malone asked. West's heart jumped. The Nature Guardian's promise? He really didn't know about this. But on the surface, West still pretended to be nonchalant. Both. Malone smiled. Since both are available, why reject my invitation? I'm the Nature Guardian's representative. I can provide you with more useful information. Mr. Malone, if you think there's value in cooperating with us, we can choose another time. We really need to rest. After all, this battle isn't easy. They definitely couldn't show impatience now. West was such a smart person. How could he let others have the upper hand? Of course, this was a sign of their confidence. They weren't worried that Malone would abandon them. Their strength was there for all to see. Thus, to maximize their benefits, they definitely couldn't be impatient now. The battle was already coming to an end. The spirit beasts either escaped or were killed. Other than the sporadic battles, most spiritualists had basically stopped. Magri Modric glanced at the people from the supernatural organization. He realized that Jolene and Nash were the only people from the supernatural community who had actually acted. The others had more or less attacked, but they looked more like they were having fun and relaxing. For example, the people who left a deep impression on him, an elite, Gaia, Norma, and Heliais. They didn't attack and stayed by West's side. The few people who did it were just casually casting a few spells. How strong was the supernatural organization? But Malone and the others clearly didn't know. The people of the association reorganized themselves a little before bidding farewell to Ma Long and leaving. Malone, are we just letting them leave? It's fine. They're dragging it out because they want more benefits. As long as they can guarantee victory in this battle, I don't mind promising them some benefits as long as they show enough strength. They're not the only powerful supernatural organization in the gathering area. Now isn't the time to care about this, Malone said. If the other organizations are powerful, I'm willing to contact them. The monster army is far stronger than what we see now. Chapter 1939. The next day, Marlin brought the 6 managers to contact West again. Mr. West, you don't seem to be willing to contact us. Can you tell me why? Marlin went straight to the point. Do you have some misunderstanding about us? Or did we do something to make you feel uncomfortable? No, West said. West said, I'm keeping my distance from you because we have different goals. Your goals are very pure and noble, while ours are much more complicated. Our main goal is profit. To West, Marlin and the others looked more like volunteers for a public cause. They were respectable, but not many people would support them. West's words were clear. They were here because there was a profit to be made. They would use their own abilities to accumulate enough merits, and then exchange them for benefits from the Scarlet Church. To put it more bluntly, everyone had different goals. But Mr. West, you haven't even contacted us before. Why are you so sure that we can't pay you enough? Marlin smiled at West. Then what can you give us? Did you know that there used to be 12 nature guardians on this continent? The current guardian is Lord Boyd. Our ancestors slept here. Their remains are still preserved, including their dragon balls, eyes, bones, and hearts, Marlin said. Malone said, If you can help, then Sir Boyd can take out a portion of the Dragon Guardian's remains as a reward. West couldn't quite accept this deal. It was like Qin Zhao was the president of the supernatural organization. After Qin Zhao passed away one day, the younger generation of the organization would use Qin Zhao's remains as a bargaining chip in order to receive some help. Whether Qin Zhao was willing or not aside, even if he was, West couldn't accept the terms of the deal. This was because there was a moral bottom line. Of course, there was another important reason. They didn't have much desire for dragon materials. After all, they didn't lack dragon materials. Mr. Marlin, we respect the guardian ancestors very much, so we can't accept this deal. West still tried to put it nicely. Mr. West, you're worrying too much. When I was alive, Mr. Boyd didn't casually use the remains of the guardians as a bargaining chip. It was the dying wish of the guardians. They made a promise before they died that they could use their remains as a bargaining chip when necessary, Malone said. Mr. Malone, is there nothing else apart from the remains of the dragons? Malone was surprised to hear West's words. West's words had sounded like he was only interested in profits. Why did he reject the remains of the dragon clan? Could it be that he didn't have enough chips? Malone suddenly looked up at West, then at the association members around him. All of them had the faint aura of the dragon clan. It was very weak, but Malone could sense it. This was mainly because Malone himself possessed the power of the dragon clan. Therefore, he was very sensitive to the aura of the dragon clan. Moreover, the dragon aura on their bodies didn't come from the same dragon race. The dragon clan aura on their bodies was not because of the power bestowed by the dragon clan. If it was the power bestowed by the dragon clan, then the aura would be very dense. However, their auras were extremely weak. The auras on their bodies weren't the power of the dragon clan. Instead, they carried some kind of artifact belonging to the dragon clan. Malone suddenly understood. They had not only the remains of the dragon clan, but also more than one. No wonder they weren't interested in the remains of the dragon clan. They already had the remains of the dragon clan. However, with their strength, they couldn't possibly slay a dragon, right? Could it be that they were hiding their strength? Mr. West, have you participated in a dragon-slaying operation before? Malone asked tentatively. If they had enough people and had the strength they had displayed last night, it was indeed possible for them to successfully slay a dragon. We have the remains of the dragon clan, but that doesn't mean we've slain a dragon before. We just happened to obtain the remains. Malone wasn't surprised. If they had really slain a dragon before, their strength wouldn't be justified at all. Moreover, the auras on their bodies didn't come from the same dragon race. If they could really kill 2 or more dragons, then their strength would be too terrifying. We once discovered a battlefield of the dragon clan. 3 dragons were fighting each other. We didn't do anything and waited until the 3 dragons died together. Only then did we retrieve their remains, West said. This lie didn't need any special details, because the difficulty of slaying a dragon was too great. That was why their lie seemed more plausible. Malone nodded. He believed West's words. At least, he felt that most of them were true. However, it was indeed rare for 3 dragons to fight each other. In the end, they even died together. Mr. West, what about the blessing from the Guardian? Do you need it? What type of blessing? Blessing was also a type of magic, but it didn't have any specific attribute. In fact, almost every type of magic had a blessing. There were also some special existences that had the power of blessing. For example, this nature's guardian. This kind of existence's blessing was very special. Their blessings would have a special effect. As long as certain conditions are met, you can freely borrow the guardian's power. Since you said that certain conditions have to be met, then it's not free to use. Mr. West, you're worrying too much. This condition refers to the body's condition. After all, even if the dragon race's power is right in front of you, not everyone can withstand it. You're a master magician, so you should understand this, Malone said respectfully. West was still not satisfied. In comparison, he was more willing to accept the conditional lending of power. He was more at ease using the power of equivalent trade, because this power was a trade. After using it, it would be over. There would be no subsequent karma. However, although the blessings that Ma Long spoke of sounded wonderful, in reality, it was a form of karma. In the future, if the Nature's Guardian needed it, it might be able to use this to recruit him. It would be difficult for him to refuse. He might not even be able to. Mr. Malone, let's talk about something more practical. Although we're not the best in the industry, we hope for a fair trade. You can treat us as mercenaries. You can give us a good price, and we'll act according to the price. Chapter 1940. Malone was speechless at the sly old fox West. West was too shrewd. If he wanted something good, he wanted something tangible. Malone took out a horn that looked like it had been made from a goat's horn. "This is the dragon horn," Malone said. Malone said, "As long as you blow the dragon's horn, you can release dragon's might. However, to blow the dragon's horn, you must have powerful magic power." West's eyes lit up. This was good stuff. It was a magic tool that only dragons could make, and a dragon could only make one in its lifetime. Although it wasn't unique, there were only a handful of them in the outside world. The dragon clan would only give the dragon horn to a human they recognized. "If you can blow the dragon's horn, then this will be your reward." West lowered his head in thought. The dragon horn was indeed very precious. He had indeed heard of the dragon horn. However, it wasn't suitable for most spiritualists. After all, most spiritualists couldn't use the dragon horn in battle. The dragon horn wasn't meant to be used in battle either. "We agree," Gaia said as she walked in. West looked at Gaia. Gaia only gave him a look. Actually, West was hesitating because if this deal was made, he would undoubtedly be the one to use the dragon horn. This would make him feel like he was abusing his power and making everyone in the association work for him. West had always been a very disciplined person. He wasn't willing to do something that would leave behind a lot of criticism. Malone looked at Gaia. He noticed that Gaia's dragon aura was slightly stronger. He guessed that Gaia might have some powerful dragon magic tool. Malone wasn't sure if Gaia's words counted, so he looked at West. West thought for a moment and said, "Since our people think this deal is okay, let's work together." Malone was very straightforward. He tossed the dragon horn to West. "Can we talk about the specifics now?" Malone asked. West nodded. "Of course. Since we've decided to work together, we naturally need to know the exact situation. There has always been a nature guardian on this wild continent since ancient times. Furthermore, every nature guardian has been a member of the Dragon Clan." The Dragon Clan explained. Malone slowly explained. "The nature guardian's main responsibility is to maintain the natural balance of this place. At the same time, they are also responsible for guarding this place against unnatural forces. Those spirit beasts last night, are they the unnatural powers you spoke of? They are the four main enemies of the nature guardians. The undead elemental army was created by an ancient shaman on the African continent. That shaman wanted to pursue immortality, and one day, he thought that he had successfully created immortality. Then, he cast a spell of immortality on everyone in the tribe. However, this spell of immortality ended in failure. The entire tribe became undead elemental bodies, evil spirits that fused with the elements. Their souls were tortured by the elements all day long. They hated this world and all living beings in this world, so they wanted to assimilate all living beings into undead elemental bodies. The leader of the undead elemental army was that shaman Boila. Ancient Yida's army is also a product of humans. They are twisted creatures created by ancient shamans. Their numbers are huge, and they have no leader. The spirit of vengeance is formed from the living beings killed by humans. It is a huge and terrifying monster. This spirit of vengeance is even able to fight against the nature guardians. Originally, the nature guardian had enough power to resist these unnatural forces, but because of the Scarlet Church's mischief, the nature guardian was listed as a hunting target, causing the nature guardian to be attacked by a large number of spiritualists. In one attack, the nature guardian was ambushed by the vengeful cursed spirit when it was fighting against those spiritualists, causing it to suffer severe injuries. Now, the nature guardian is in a weakened state. The originally fragile balance has completely lost its stability. The enemies of the nature guardian are stirring, and the most active among them is the Spirit Beast Army. Their numbers are simply too large, so their attacks are unrestrained. From Malone's description, the situation was far more serious than what West had imagined. In addition, the evil cultists are also getting restless, trying to cause even more chaos. From what you're saying, the current situation is already very serious? It's indeed very grim, but it's not entirely without good news. The 4 enemies of the Nature Guardian aren't her companions, and they are also fighting amongst themselves. Moreover, although they know that the Nature Guardian is injured, they don't know the extent of her injuries. Then how serious are the injuries of the Nature Guardians? Malone muttered to himself for a long time, hesitating whether he should tell the truth or not. After all, he didn't completely trust West and the others. However, after thinking for a long time, Malone finally decided to tell the truth. Currently, the Nature Guardians are unable to fight. There are only 2 ways. What are they? One way is to stall for time. 10 years. The Nature Protector needs 10 years to recover. You're saying that we have to guard this place for 10 years? West shouted. If that's the case, I'm sorry, but we can't help you. West stuffed the dragon horn back into Malone's hands. Don't worry, Mr. West. I've said that there are 2 ways. Stalling for time is also unacceptable to us. For dragons, 10 years is a short time, but for humans, 10 years is too long. Malone said unhurriedly. That's why there's another way, which is to eliminate a certain number of enemies. Isn't that the old way? Just fight and it'll be over in no time, West said nonchalantly. It's not the same. The reason why the Nature Guardian is the Nature Guardian is because while he protects the wildlands, he also receives the power of the wildlands. After killing those enemies, they will return to nature and eventually return to the Nature Guardian's body. This way, the Nature Guardian's injuries can be healed quickly. As long as we kill enough enemies, the Nature Guardian can recover in an extremely short time. Chapter 1941. You have to give us a specific number, West said. If you only say that we have to kill a lot of them, we won't have an idea at all. I don't like this kind of battle without an exact number. At least one of the Nature Guardian's 4 main enemies has to be eliminated for the Nature Guardian to recover completely. We can't do that, West rejected directly. Even if he accepted Malone's reward, it didn't mean that Malone could ask for an exorbitant price. Moreover, Malone's request was indeed too much. According to Marlin's explanation, the Nature Guardian's 4 main enemies were the Spirit Beast Army, the Undead Elemental Army, Guyita's Army, and the Spirit of Vengeance. The 4 of them had close combat strength, and with the Spirit of Vengeance as the standard, the Spirit of Vengeance's strength was equivalent to the Nature Guardians. In other words, they would have to face an enemy that was at the level of a dragon with the title of Nature Guardian. This was too much. West knew the supernatural organization's strength very well. Putting aside Qin Zhao, the people below the president weren't weak, but they weren't at the top either. Even if they all worked together, they wouldn't be able to fight against a dragon. Take Gaia for example. She had the bloodline of a dragon. Ever since her awakening, her bloodline had been increasing in purity. But even now, she was barely at the level of a young dragon. She was only at the level of a Betos. A young dragon and an adult dragon were 2 completely different concepts. Gaia was also the strongest in the supernatural organization. Moreover, the difference in strength wasn't something that could be made up with a few people. It was like a special forces soldier and a kid. Their strength, speed, and combat power were only 10 times different, but could 10 kids beat a special forces soldier? Of course, from the current situation, if they really wanted to accept this mission, the Spirit Beast Army was undoubtedly the most suitable. After all, the Spirit Beasts won purely through numbers. Their individual strength was within the acceptable range of the supernatural organization. Moreover, the supernatural organization was most confident in dealing with such a large number of enemies. However, since they were able to rival the other 3, then their numbers were probably terrifying. Quantitative change could be transformed into qualitative change. Mr. West, I feel that you can try the Spirit Beast Army, Malone said. The Spirit Beast Army isn't always gathered together. They are all led by Chief-class Spirit Beasts. Roughly one Chief-class Spirit Beast will be born out of every 10,000 Spirit Beasts. Their habits are very similar to wild beasts, and they will often have conflicts with each other over territory. Hence, you don't need to deal with the entire Spirit Beast Army at once. You just need to wipe them out one by one. Marlin paused for a moment before continuing. Also, I can provide you with information about the Spirit Beasts. I still can't. Your conditions are too much, West said. Mr. West, we can arrange for a few spiritualists who are not weak to work with you. A rather strong spiritualist? We don't like to team up with strangers. Malone had never met someone so difficult to deal with. If it weren't for the fact that they were powerful, Ma Long would have flipped the table. Marlin continued. Mr. West, the people I've arranged are not weak, but they are also willing to listen to your orders. They will obey any order you give them unconditionally. Are these people your subordinates? No, but they have already made a promise. Hence, they don't object to my arrangements. West was a little puzzled. They weren't Marlin's subordinates, yet they weren't weak and would obey Marlin's orders unconditionally. Ordinary spiritualist organizations might not be willing to work with strangers, let alone listen to the orders of strangers. Could it be that these spiritualists had something on them that Marlin could use against them? Hence, they were being threatened by him? If that was the case, he would have to be even more careful. Mr. West, I believe that our cooperation should be based on sincerity. My request will be lowered again and again. All right, but before that, I need to know who the people you've arranged for me are and how strong they are. I don't want to bring a bunch of burdens with me. Don't you agree? Of course, no problem. Mr. Sonnenfeld, when do you plan to return the money you owe us? Sonnenfeld's expression was very ugly as he looked at the people in front of him. I've already applied for bankruptcy protection. I don't have the money to return it to you. Sonnenfeld could only hide in his daughter's house and rely on her to live. This had saved him a lot of trouble. During this period, the money he owed through proper channels couldn't do anything to him. However, the money he owed did not all come from proper channels. For example, the person in front of him was from Saint and Finance Company. Of course, they were also a usury group. Sonnenfeld had borrowed $3 million, but after a year, it had turned into $5 million. Usury represented huge profits, so it was inevitable that it would appear in any country or region. Of course, usury was not allowed or protected by the law. However, usury did not rely on the law to collect debts. They used more direct methods. Mr. Sonnenfeld, this is not a reason for you to reject us. The man with a small mustache standing in front of Sonnenfeld smoked a cigar. When he looked at Sonnenfeld, his eyes flickered with coldness. I don't like violence, but that doesn't mean I won't use it. I communicate with most of my clients peacefully, but if they don't listen to me, I don't mind using unconventional methods to get back the money that belongs to us. Just then, the door opened and Demi walked in. When she saw her father and a few strangers, her face sank. Who are you? Get out of my house, or I'll call the police. The man with a small mustache looked at Demi. Miss Demi, I'm the person in charge of Saint and Finance Company. This is my business card. We have some financial disputes with your father, but if you call the police, the situation will become very complicated. Dad, how much do you owe them? Demi looked at her father. Sonnenfeld lowered his head, unwilling to answer the question. $5 million. The man with a small mustache answered for Sonnenfeld. Demi's face darkened. $5 million? Even if she sold herself, she wouldn't be able to get that much money. Chapter 1942. The people from the finance company left. Although they did not use force, the name of the finance company gave off a very bad feeling. Even if Demi was a high-ranking military officer, it was useless. Demi and Sonnenfeld sat in the room, either of them speaking. Dad, why are you in debt to the loan sharks? Before my movie was released, I thought that the film company's stock would soar because of my movie, so I'd borrowed some money to buy the company's stock," Sonnenfeld said helplessly. "You know the result." Demi was also helpless. She also knew that her father had been in trouble. His father had ended up in his current situation because he had invested all of his assets into stocks. "Do you know the background of those loan sharks?" Demi asked. "Yes, they're New Yorkers." Of course, the New Yorker Sonnenfeld was talking about was not just a magazine. New Yorkers referred to a wide range of things, and one of them was widely known as the Gang. This was also a very famous gang in the United States. Demi's face gradually darkened. The gang's structure was very complicated. It could even influence politicians. Therefore, it was difficult for Demi to use the military's power. Suddenly, Demi thought of an idea. A solution that was not really a solution. "Dad, stay here for now. I'll think of something," Demi said as she left in a hurry and headed to the military base headquarters. Seeing Demi return, Demi's adjutant immediately came over. "Sir, aren't you on leave?" "I'm fine, so I came back," Demi said calmly. Due to the explosion on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain, Demi had been demoted. Now, she was only a major. However, her authority did not decrease because of that. Instead, she was authorized to handle some special events. Now, she was in charge of the entire military base. After Demi returned to her office, she immediately opened a file on her computer. Demi had access to a lot of secrets. Not long ago, she discovered one of the missions. The higher-ups had given her $30 million for this mission. It could be said that this mission was the most expensive mission that Demi had ever encountered. After all, some missions in third-world countries only cost a few $100,000 to a few $1 million. Eliminate the Sala lab in the desert near the capital of Baja California. The mastermind behind Sarah's laboratory was the culprit behind the explosion of the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. At present, the approximate location of Sala's laboratory had been determined. It was located underground within 200 square kilometers. Demi stared at the description of the mission, reading every single useful information in detail. At the moment, it was still impossible to find out the true identity of the owner of Sarah's laboratory, so it was best to keep at least one person alive. At the same time, Sarah's laboratory was conducting unknown experiments, and the contents of the experiments were likely to involve human and biological experiments that violated national and international laws. There were also many unnatural monsters in the desert that were extremely aggressive. Because it was located in Mexico, it could not receive military support, nor could it carry too many extraordinary weapons. However, they could hire international mercenaries, and the activity budget was capped at $30 million. Demi thought about it. At the moment, she could only mobilize about 500 people in the military base. There were only about 300 people who could carry out the mission, while the other 200 were logistics personnel. Furthermore, it was impossible for all 300 of them to complete the mission at the same time. For this operation, they could only mobilize about 150 people at most. During the last operation on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain, she had lost nearly 100 people. This time, the target was Sarah's laboratory itself, so the danger would definitely be higher than the last time. Wanting to completely destroy Sarah's laboratory with just 150 people? The difficulty was too high. Demi thought about it for a long time. According to her best plan, she would complete this mission alone. She would falsely report the use of the funds, then withhold a portion of the funds to pay off her father's debt. As a military general, she naturally had a way. For example, she could set up a shell company, then use the shell company's account to transfer the funds to this company. However, the prerequisite was that she had enough strength to deal with Sarah's laboratory. If she couldn't deal with Sarah's laboratory, then the higher-ups of the military would definitely conduct a detailed investigation of the operation. To find out the reason for the failure, this would increase the possibility of her withholding funds being exposed. If she could complete this mission, then all she needed to do was to report the operation, and the higher-ups wouldn't get to the bottom of it and investigate where the funds were used. Demi thought about it for a long time, trying to find an appropriate plan to complete this mission. However, she lacked sufficient strength, and this operation was outside of the country, which increased the difficulty of her mission. What should she do? Demi suddenly thought of someone. Chen Zhao, the culprit that caused her father to go bankrupt. He was also the person she hated the most. Demi wasn't really willing to interact with Chen Zhao. This was because Chen Zhao was someone as strong as her. Moreover, he had almost no weaknesses. He had enormous assets, and in this country, rich people were the privileged class. Moreover, his personal strength was unfathomable. After thinking for a long time, Demi finally decided to interact with Chen Zhao. Demi packed up the confidential documents and went to Chen Zhao's residence. "Boss, here's the financial report from Citibank." Portia handed it to Chen Zhao. Portia had already seen the numbers on it. Chen Zhao's expenses last month were huge, but they weren't even as much as the interest on his bank account. This meant that no matter how much Chen Zhao spent, his money still didn't decrease. His money didn't decrease. Instead, it continued to increase. Of course, this didn't include Chen Zhao's personal income. Chen Zhao's bank account was enough to make Portia's scalp go numb. Chen Zhao glanced at the financial report, and then put it away. Chen Zhao had never been good at math. Thus, he'd always been very casual about financial reports. Of course, if he found out that the bank's agent, Andrews, had cheated Chen Zhao's money one day, he could ask the bank for compensation with this financial report. Just then, the butler system sent a message. "Master, a stranger has entered Minghua Villa. After checking the license plate, we can confirm that the owner is Demi Sonnenfeld, a mid-level general in the military, major rank." Chapter 1943. She was a guest. But Demi wasn't a good guest. It was obvious from her gaze and expression when she'd arrived. She definitely wasn't a guest. Portia stood beside Chen Zhao. Looking at Demi's angry face, she was even more annoyed. Last time, Demi had used her to threaten Chen Zhao. It would be strange if she had a good attitude towards Demi. Chen Zhao crossed his legs and looked at Demi. "Ms. Demi, if you're just here to stare at me, I can take a photo for you. You can stare at it day and night." Demi took a deep breath. Even here, Demi was still hesitant about whether or not to cooperate with Chen Zhao. But in the end, she made up her mind. "Ms. Portia, can you give me some space? I have something to discuss with your boss." Portia was even more annoyed. "You don't pay me. Why should I listen to you?" Demi looked at Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chen, what do you think?" "Portia, go and accompany the kids." Chen Zhao also wanted to know why Demi was looking for him. If Portia was here, Demi definitely wouldn't say anything. What she wanted to tell him was most likely confidential information. It wouldn't benefit Portia if she knew. Portia glared at Demi hatefully, and then turned to leave. "You can say it now, Ms. Demi." Demi handed Chen Zhao the document she'd brought with her. "Mr. Chen, take a look at this." "What's this?" Chen Zhao didn't take it out immediately. Demi wasn't his friend. In fact, they were enemies. Who knew what the document was? "Remember the explosion on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain?" Demi said. "It was done by the people from Sarah's lab." Chen Zhao still didn't take out the document. Instead, he waited for Demi to continue. Demi's expression was calm. She hoped to see some change in Chen Zhao's expression. But Chen Zhao didn't move at all, as if this had nothing to do with him. In fact, it really had nothing to do with him. "I still don't understand. Mr. Chen, you were attacked by a super bomb last time. Don't you want revenge?" "I don't want to. I am a person who advocates peace and opposes violence. Not all losses can be solved with violence." Hearing that, Demi couldn't help but feel nauseous. Chen Zhao's words were really untrustworthy. "Mr. Chen, this isn't interesting at all." "Is that so? But I still don't understand. Miss Demi, why are you showing me this thing?" Demi was a bit annoyed by Chen Zhao's obvious question. However, there was no trust between them in the first place. Therefore, both sides held back from each other. Of course, Demi hoped that Chen Zhao would be overwhelmed by anger. Meanwhile, Chen Zhao was always on guard against Demi. Mr. Chen, I'll be straightforward. How about you and I work together to eradicate this Sarah lab? Nothing. Chen Zhao rejected Demi's suggestion. Why? This will benefit you as well. Benefits? I don't see any benefits. Demi took a deep breath and said, $10 million. Chen Zhao crossed his arms and didn't react at all. $15 million. $20 million. But Chen Zhao still didn't react. Mr. Chen, you'd better take a look at the documents I've brought. In the past 10 years, Sarah Lab has conducted a large number of illegal experiments. 10 years ago, there was a case of a large number of police officers going missing in Bacali. In one night, more than 50 police officers went missing. 3 years later, they were found buried in an abandoned mine. These 50 police officers all had one thing in common. They all took part in an operation. They once took down an organization that sold human organs. That organization was an external department of Sarah Lab. What does this have to do with me? All the signs show that Sarah Lab is a vengeful organization. They take revenge on those who were their enemies in the past. Demi said. Both you and I have fought them before, so I don't think Salah's laboratory will let you go. Chen Zhao frowned. He really didn't like Demi. He didn't like Demi, but he had to admit that Demi's words had hit his sore spot. Chen Zhao didn't like to guard against thieves day and night. You represent the military. Isn't the military enough to destroy Sarah Lab? Sarah Lab is in Mexico, in the middle of the desert near Bacali. No matter how powerful the military is, they can't send an army into Mexico. Since it's in Mexico, you have even less reason to attack, right? It's not in America anyway. No, they're a potential threat. We have to destroy them. Demi stared at Chen Zhao. Just like last time, you'll be hired as a special consultant for the military. Chen Zhao closed his eyes and leaned back, as if he was thinking about Demi's words. Mr. Chen, after this operation, we'll write off all our grudges. I won't make trouble for you in the future either. Chen Zhao had to admit that he was still a bit wary of Demi. After all, she was a mid-level general. Her hatred couldn't hurt Chen Zhao in any real way, but it didn't hurt him much. But the potential threat still existed. This was a problem Chen Zhao had to face. Seeing that Chen Zhao was wavering, Demi continued. Apart from that, I can also be your partner in the military. Of course, it's a private one. Chen Zhao was tempted, but he still hesitated. Why should I believe you? I can write a guarantee for you, Demi said. If our relationship breaks down in the future, you can expose this guarantee. Chen Zhao was surprised. Demi's intentions were too obvious. She wanted to cooperate with him. She'd actually put his weakness in his hands. But Chen Zhao had to admit that he was really wavering this time. Demi was a potential stock in the military. If she could become his partner, it would only be good for him. Sure. As long as you're willing to write a guarantee, I'll agree to the cooperation. Chen Zhao finally made up his mind. I have another condition, Demi said. Chen Zhao frowned. What condition? Demi looked at Chen Zhao. I need you to promise me first, then I can tell you. How is that possible? Do I have to promise you even if you tell me to eat shit? My condition isn't difficult for you at all. In fact, it's insignificant. Chapter 1944. Even if they'd verbally agreed to cooperate. But Chen Zhao still wouldn't agree to Demi's strange request easily. Even if it was a verbal agreement, Chen Zhao wouldn't accept it if he wasn't sure. If you can't tell me your request first, I definitely won't agree. Demi took a deep breath. She was angry at Chen Zhao's stubbornness. He wasn't willing to expose even the slightest flaw. From the beginning to the end, Demi couldn't take the initiative. She could only wait for Chen Zhao's answer. On behalf of the military, I hope to pay you 30 million US dollars, not 20 million US dollars. Chen Zhao was stunned, but he quickly understood Demi's intentions. Even so, you won't get the money, right? Chen Zhao looked at Demi. Chen Zhao didn't care if Demi cooperated or not. In fact, he was more willing for her to do so. That way, Demi would give Chen Zhao even more leverage. If Demi's previous promise was only for her to lose her position and job, then what she did now would be illegal. Now what she did was illegal, and a felony. She would even be court-martialed. Demi looked at Chen Zhao with some mockery in her eyes. I really don't understand how you earn such a large fortune. Then tell me how you're going to get the money. I don't need you to transfer the money directly to my account. What I need is for you to open 2 anonymous overseas accounts and prepare them in advance. You don't need to wait for the military to transfer the money to your account before you carry out a series of operations. What's the point of that? If the military transfers the money to the account under your name, the military can track the account through financial channels and know the short-term flow of funds in your account. However, if you prepare the money in advance, the military can't track it. Of course, these 2 anonymous accounts will be handed to me after the money is in hand. That's a simple procedure, Demi said coolly. Chen Zhao got the gist of it. It was indeed very simple. But if he wanted to take the money, Demi wouldn't be able to do anything. This involved the issue of trust. Demi had suggested this mostly because she was confident in her own value. In this regard, Chen Zhao indeed wouldn't ruin his cooperation with Demi for $10 million. Chen Zhao didn't want to make a powerful enemy for $10 million. With this in hand, Demi would no longer be a threat. I never thought that the proud Miss Demi would have such an unknown side to her. Demi glanced at Chen Zhao. It's all because of you. Because of you, my father owes a lot of money. Some of it is from loan sharks. Most of it is to pay off the loan sharks. The rest is for my father to pay off his bank debt. Demi looked at Chen Zhao. Because Sonnenfeld had filed for bankruptcy protection, he didn't have to worry about his bank debt for the time being. But it also made his life extremely inconvenient. Sonnenfeld couldn't even have his own credit card. His credit rating in the bank had completely collapsed. In the United States, if one's credit went bankrupt, it would be hard for one to do anything. Although Demi was a mid-level general in the military, she was facing millions of dollars in debt. She was also powerless. It was precisely because of this that she decided to take the risk. Of course, she knew it was wrong to do so. But now, she had no other choice. She felt that she deserved it. This was no longer about right or wrong. If she didn't do this, she would lose her father. Chen Zhao laughed. He didn't feel guilty or regretful at all. Miss Demi, if you're willing to sign a contract to sell yourself, I'll be happy to help your father pay off his debt. Demi ignored Chen Zhao's words and pretended that she didn't hear anything. Was it that easy to sign a contract to sell herself? Her identity was so sensitive. If she really did sign a contract to sell herself, even if there wouldn't be any legal consequences, once it was exposed, she might be judged as a traitor. Of course, Chen Zhao was just saying it casually. He didn't really expect Demi to agree. After all, Demi wasn't at the end of her rope yet. The operation will start in a week. You should prepare. We need to do some preparations too. I'll participate too, Demi said. Oh, since you're the military's special consultant, you can give me some suggestions. It's best for your soldiers to wear portable weapons with strong penetration and incendiary bombs. Regular grenades won't be very effective. Also, your soldiers need to prepare protective clothing. Anything else? What I'm saying now is based on what I've seen on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. However, the incident on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain was caused by an attack by Sarah's laboratory. Sarah's laboratory itself is definitely more dangerous than the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. I know nothing about Sarah's laboratory, so I'm not sure what kind of danger we'll encounter. Also, if Sarah Lab uses a super bomb like last time, I won't be able to do anything. We'll all die together. Hearing that, Demi couldn't help but reveal a serious expression. After all, the explosion on Lake Pontchartrain's artificial island had left a deep impression on Demi. The artificial island had completely disappeared because of that, and a large portion of the Lake Pontchartrain bridge had also been destroyed. If we want to carry out this mission, the first thing we need to do is to be secretive, Qin Zhao said. We can't use military identities. All of us have to disguise ourselves as tourists. Also, the operation has to be completed in one night. We can't give them time to prepare. If the people from Sarah Lab find out that they've been targeted by the American military, they might abandon the lab and prepare a huge gift for us. Demi nodded. Chen Zhao's words made sense. But this way, they couldn't hide the people they brought. After all, it would be too obvious if more than 100 burly Americans appeared in Akali. How does the military transport weapons to other countries? Chen Zhao asked. We have our own channels. We have arms dealers all over the world. As long as we provide them with what we need, they can prepare the weapons locally. We don't need to transport them. By the way, can I buy firearms if I want? No. Only the military can use those channels. Even I can't contact them. I can only send information and requests through the higher-ups in the military. Chapter 1945. Boss, why did that woman want to see you? After Demi left, Portia returned to Qin Zhao's side. Judging from their conversation, it didn't seem like they were talking about anything serious. However, when she saw Qin Zhao's smiling face, Portia suspected that Qin Zhao had earned money again. She remembered that when Demi came to Qin Zhao for help last time, she offered him $20 million. At that time, Qin Zhao had accepted it unwillingly. She didn't know that Qin Zhao must have earned a lot of money to be smiling so happily. Qin Zhao whistled and lay down on the chair. Portia, go get me some beer. Portia moved a box of beer to Qin Zhao. Boss, did you earn a lot of money again? Yeah, then, on account of my hard work, will you give me a raise? Qin Zhao glanced at Portia. Portia, you only see that I'm making money, but you don't see my expenses. My expenses are huge too, so don't think about getting a raise for the time being. Portia cursed Qin Zhao in her heart. The capitalist, the vampire. Just then, Felwood Cisco called again. It was time to check on the Mirror Lake Villa again. Felwood would call Qin Zhao 2 or 3 times a month. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't go every time. Felwood promised that he would do it before Christmas. Qin Zhao's family could move to their new home at Mirror Lake. Qin Zhao didn't force it though. He kept saying that he wasn't in a hurry. However, Felwood didn't stop working on Qin Zhao's project. To him, Qin Zhao was a huge financial backer. He'd even introduced Steven, a big client. Technically, Felwood still had to give Qin Zhao a commission, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid that Qin Zhao would think that he was insulting him. After all, he couldn't afford to give too much. If he gave too little, Qin Zhao wouldn't like it. Therefore, Felwood Cisco worked overtime on Qin Zhao's project and added more materials. Kids, get changed. We'll go see how the new house is. After Qin Zhao informed them, the children all changed into their outfits. When Portia and Qin Zhao's family arrived, the new house at Mirror Lake was already finished. The main project now was the renovation of the interior of the building, as well as the planting and transplanting of the external garden. When he entered the villa, he saw that some of the rooms in the villa had already been completed, while others were still being renovated. The number of workers in the construction site had decreased a lot, unlike the previous construction when there were as many as hundreds of people. Mirror Lake's new home, in addition to the huge change in appearance, was also several times larger than before. If it was the villa in the past, although the design was not bad, the building area was too small. There were no more than 5 bedrooms, and the other messy rooms added up to a total of 11 or 12 rooms, including the number of bathrooms. It was only when he was at the Bright Moon Villa that he was able to correct himself. There were more than 15 bedrooms in the Mingwe Villa. Basically, every child would have a room. Now, the new villa at Mirror Lake had more rooms, up to 30 rooms. The main body of the building was U-shaped. Half of it was in the lake, and the other half was on land. Moreover, every bedroom faced both the forest and Mirror Lake, which were illuminated. Qin Zhao was very satisfied with the design. Just then, a car entered the construction site. "Hi, Chen." Ken alighted from the car. Qin Zhao walked up and gave Ken a hug. "Why are you here?" "Dad heard that you're here," Ken said. "He invited you and your children to our house." "Are you sure?" "I have a lot of children." "Don't worry," Ken said. "My yard is big enough, although it can't compare to yours." "Okay." Qin Zhao nodded. After inspecting the construction site, Qin Zhao brought the children to Ban's house. "Mary." Qin Zhao went up and kissed her face. "Are you home today too?" "Dell and Miss Fisher went out for 2 days," Mary said. "They'll be back tomorrow. I've been home these days. Children, come here. This is your Aunt Mary." "Aunt Mary, hello." Didala greeted Mary first. "What a cute girl." Mary and Ban both knew that Qin Zhao had adopted 8 children. "Aunt Mary, I'm already grown up," Didala protested. "Okay, forgive my rudeness, but you're a beautiful girl," Mary said, smiling. "Let me see. Is there one missing?" Mary's gaze landed on Portia. "Is it her?" "She's not my adopted child. She's my assistant." Qin Zhao glanced at Portia. Portia was also speechless. How did he look like a child? "Where's Bant?" "He went out to buy alcohol. I drove here. It's not convenient for me to drink." "It's okay. I won't let Ken drink. I'll have him drive you later." "Mom, you're too much. You're moving out soon. Your father and I paid for the down payment for your new house. Do you think you can go against my orders now?" "Mom, Chin is still here. He has so many children. You should at least save some face for your son. If you have Chen's abilities, I won't say anything." Mary and Ban had watched Qin Zhao grow up bit by bit. From the very beginning, when he first arrived here, to now, when he was extremely wealthy. However, Mary and Ban always kept a certain distance from Qin Zhao. They were intimate but not pestered. They would occasionally invite Qin Zhao's family over for a meal. A while later, Ban returned and called Ken out to move the beer. Qin Zhao also came out and looked at Bant. "Bant, why did you grow a beard? It looks like you've changed a lot." "I can't help it. In the brewery, I didn't look imposing at all, but after I grew a beard, the kids became much more obedient." "Which disobedient kid is it?" "I'll throw him into the sea to feed the sharks." "Come on, the brewery is yours, but how many times have you been to the brewery?" "Let me count." "Once when production started, once when the executives interviewed, and once during the last meeting. You've only been there 3 times in total. You're too irresponsible as a boss. This means that I trust the management of the brewery." Actually, Band also knew about Qin Zhao's agreement with Denver. He was Qin Zhao's spy in the brewery. He was definitely one of Qin Zhao's people. Even if he said otherwise, no one would believe him. Chapter 1946. When Qin Zhao left, he didn't ask Ken to send him off. Instead, he forbade Portia from drinking and made her drive. Portia was already used to Qin Zhao's unscrupulous boss. "Boss, I want next month's salary in advance," Portia said as she drove. "I'm drunk now. I can't hear what you're saying." "Boss, my house has no water and electricity. Do you want me to live in a primitive society?" Portia planned to act pitiful in front of Qin Zhao. "Last time, I asked if you wanted to borrow money. If you need it, I can lend it to you, but you rejected me. I don't want to borrow money now. I want my salary in advance. Is there a difference?" "Of course," Portia answered seriously. "If I borrow money, then I'll only owe more and more. But if I get my salary in advance, then the amount of money I owe won't increase." The American people were used to this sort of thing. Spending in advance, receiving in advance, and enjoying in advance. Before Qin Zhao could reply, Portia added, "If you don't agree, I'll move to your house." "Sure." Chen Zhao agreed readily. You can move here for half a month. Huh! I'm going on a business trip next week. You can move here and help me take care of the kids. You don't need me to follow you? No. No. I don't want to be a laborer. Portia wailed. Portia wailed. I'm not your coolie. I'm highly educated. I should do something more meaningful. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and said mercilessly, If you think you should do something more meaningful, you should be a volunteer. Portia, know your place. You're just a vain woman. Portia was speechless. You're just a vain woman. Boss, is this fun? Yes. You're so rich, Portia said earnestly. You should hire some servants. Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at Portia. To save money, he said matter-of-factly. Portia wanted to vomit blood. He earned tens of millions of dollars just to save some money? Wasn't that a bit too much? His one day's income was probably the lifetime income of a bunch of servants. Boss, you've gone too far. How about this? I'll advance your salary for next month, but you'll have to temporarily move into my house while I'm on a business trip. Fine. What else could Portia do? She had no right to choose at all. If she continued to bargain, with Chen Zhao's personality, he might not even get an advance on his salary. He directly ordered him to move in. Boss, do you really not need me to go with you? I'm going to Mexico, Mexicali, not some shopping city. But Cali? That place is not bad either. Cali is the capital of Baja California because of its proximity to the United States. Therefore, the export processing industry here is quite prosperous, and it has also attracted a large number of Americans to Cali for vacation. In addition to the unique scenery here, it was also because the prices here were quite low. Here, one could enjoy the treatment of a rich person with $1,000. With 10,000 USD, one could enjoy the treatment of an emperor here. The middle class in America loved to come here. Portia was tempted to tag along. She had always heard that Cali was a popular holiday spot. If they followed Chen Zhao, they would definitely spend a lot of money, given Chen Zhao's requirements for quality of life. On the other hand, she did not have to spend a single cent to enjoy the best quality of life. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao clearly would not agree to her request. After reaching home, Portia left. Of course, she still got an advance on her salary before leaving. Chen Zhao told Fei Lai at the dinner table. Fei Lai, I'm going to Mexico's Mexicali next week. Mexicali? To play? Chen Zhao shook his head. It's military work. Uncle, I want to go too. I want to go too. The children all looked at Chen Zhao with watery eyes. Not this time. Chen Zhao rejected the children's request decisively. I'm not going to play. I'll let Portia stay here for a few days next week. How many days are you going? I'm not sure. Maybe 3 or 4 days. I'll come back as soon as I'm done. Okay. I'll bring the children to the coastal rescue team while you're gone. That's okay. Portia can go. She can help a little. Hi, I'm Portia. Hi, I saw an ad on an agency website for sharing rentals. I heard that you're looking for a partner? Yes. Can I look at the house? Of course, but did you see the rent? It's at least $2,000. I need to look at the house first. If I'm satisfied, I'll accept the price. When will you come to look at the house? Now. I'm in a hurry. Sure. I don't have time during the day anyway. Portia didn't have money, but the house she was living in wasn't bad. It was a single-family villa in an upscale neighborhood. It was around 300 square meters. This was the house she'd found after getting Chen Zhao's job. At the time, she thought that her salary was enough to pay for the house. Later, she'd been short of money again, but she wasn't willing to move anymore. She wanted to find someone to share her house with. 30 minutes later, there was a knock on Portia's door. When Portia opened the door, she saw a very petite girl standing outside. The girl looked to be around 20 years old, but she was around 1.5 meters tall. I'm here to look at the house. I might be your partner. The girl wore a loose long-sleeved shirt, and hid her hands in her pockets. Portia saw a sports car parked in front of the villa. It seemed that the girl was quite rich. "Please come in." Portia let the girl in. "I'm Zephyra," the girl said. "I'm Portia." Zephyra walked around the room. Portia introduced the houses to Zephyra one by one. "This house has 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. Of course, there's also a public bathroom. That's the living room. The kitchen is over there. Water, electricity, and gas are shared equally." "I don't cook at home," Zephyr said. "Then I'll take care of your breakfast." "Okay." Zephyr nodded. Zephyr didn't realize that she'd fallen into Portia's trap. Or rather, she wasn't very sensitive to money. "My room is on the left," Portia said. "You can choose one of the other 2. I'm not home most of the time. Even on the weekends, I'm probably working for my stingy vampire boss." Chapter 1947. The entire rent for Portia's apartment was only $3,500. But Portia asked Riva for $2,000. Of course, Portia actually had room to bargain. But Zevra had no intention of bargaining. After looking at the apartment, Riva stuffed a stack of cash into Portia's hands. "Here's $2,000. Can I move in now?" You mean today?" "Yes, it's expensive to stay in a hotel," Riva said. "You're welcome." Portia finally smiled. Today was really a happy day. She'd just gotten next month's salary in advance from Qin Zhao. She didn't expect the empty room to be rented out too. And it was such a high price. "Can you help me move some things? Did you bring any luggage?" "It's in the car." "What luggage do you have in your sports car?" "A box of miscellaneous items and a box of clothes." When Portia followed Riva to the sports car, she realized that there was indeed very little luggage. Just as Portia was about to lift a box, Riva said, "You can't carry that box. You can carry the other one." Portia was immediately unhappy. She was at least 20 centimeters taller than Riva. Why could Riva carry it when she couldn't? As if she hadn't heard Riva, Portia reached for the box. But Portia felt like the box was filled with iron. She couldn't lift it at all. Portia tried again, and the box moved slightly. However, there was still a long way to go before he could take it out of the trunk. "What's in this box? Iron? Let me take this box." Riva walked over and lifted the box with one hand. Then, she raised it slightly and put it on the ground. Portia's eyes almost fell to the ground. She could do that? Portia tried again. The other box. The other box was much easier. At least the second box was a normal weight. The first box, on the other hand, was at least 100 kilograms. This girl's strength was way too great. She could actually lift such a heavy box with one hand. "Do you have sheets and pillows? I can borrow them for one night." "Sure." Portia was generous. He helped Revla tidy up the room and gave his pillows and sheets to Revla. Riva opened the heavy box. Portia saw that there were indeed a lot of things in the box. Moreover, the items were very complicated, and most of them were things that she could not recognize. "What are these things?" "My tool for work," Zephyr replied calmly. He took out the items from the boxes one by one and arranged them neatly. Portia also came over and studied it for a long time, but she still had no clue. There was no way to figure out the uses of these things. "Is there anything to eat?" Zevra asked after a while. "Yes, I'll go get some food." Portia had pizza in her fridge that was a few days old, but it was still edible after being reheated in the microwave. After taking 2 bites, Refra put the pizza back on the plate in disgust. "Is it not to your taste? Don't tell me that's what you serve for breakfast?" Zephyr looked at Portia suspiciously. "Of course not. I just forgot to throw it away." In fact, Portia had been freeloading her meals at the Bright Moon Villa. "There are still fresh ingredients in the fridge, but my cooking skills are very average. You can make it yourself." Indeed, Zephyr went to the kitchen to cook. Portia looked at Refra's skillful cooking and was a little stunned. Especially after she was done, Portia couldn't help but feel hungry as she looked at the food Zephyr cooked. Even though she had already had dinner at the Bright Moon Villa. But now, she felt a little hungry again. "Let's have some," Zephyr said. "Are you a chef?" Portia looked at the stir-fried meat with broccoli, picked up a knife and fork, and stabbed a piece of meat. Portia's eyes lit up as soon as it entered her mouth. Delicious. Stir-frying was rarely used in European and American cooking. It wasn't that it didn't exist, but it was very rare. "Are you a chef?" "No, cooking is just my hobby," Zephyr said. "And I can't treat myself badly after living alone for so long." "You're really good at cooking." "Thank you." Zephyr could tell that Portia wanted to eat too, so she made a lot of dishes. Portia didn't stand on ceremony, even though it was her own home. She felt like she was freeloading. "What's your job?" Portia asked curiously. "I'm a special consultant." "Special consultant? What kind?" "You probably don't have the chance to use me." "What about you? What do you do?" "I'm a private consultant for a rich man," Portia said. "But my dream is to be a star. Everyone in LA wants to be a star." Zephyr didn't find Portia's answer strange at all. "Except for rich people, such as my vampire boss." "Is your boss very strict with you?" "Of course. He's the most despicable, shameless, and stingiest man I've ever seen. You can't imagine how stingy he is. If that's the case, why don't you quit?" "He pays me well," Portia said. But she didn't think that she could find a job that could pay her $3,500 a week. She had a good education, but there were too many cases of people with good education living on the streets here. After all, $3,500 a week was higher than the average income of a middle-class family. Plus, Portia owed Chen Zhao a lot of money. "Didn't you say that he's stingy?" "Yes, he's indeed stingy, but that doesn't stop him from paying me a high salary. It's all because of my ability, so he has to pay me." Portia clearly didn't want to continue talking about this. "Oh, you just arrived in LA?" "Yes, so I need to start my business as soon as possible." Zephyr nodded. "If you're willing to tell me what you do, maybe I can introduce you to a few clients." "Forget it. You can't help." "Fine, it's fine if you don't want to." Portia could tell that Zephyr was intentionally avoiding the nature of her job. She didn't want to chase her new roommate away. "But I think you should be a chef. Your food is really delicious." "A chef doesn't make as much as my current income." "You have a high income?" "Kind of. I'm also a high-income person." Zephyr smiled. "Finance?" The only possibility Portia could think of was finance. Chapter 1948. My job is more complicated. Zevra was still perfunctory. Portia saw that Zevra really didn't want to talk about it, so she gave up on asking. Knock, knock. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted the two women's conversation. "I'll get the door." Portia jogged to the door and opened it. Two people stood outside. One of them was wearing a hat. "Hello, are you Miss Portia?" "I am." "Who are you?" Portia was very sure that she didn't know the two people at the door. "If you're here to sell insurance, our conversation ends here." "No, we are not selling insurance. I am Peter, the person in charge of Saint and Finance Company. I heard that Miss Portia has been a little short on money recently. Our company has recently launched a loan product that can solve Miss Portia's current financial crisis," Peter said. "I'm sorry, I'm not interested." Portia rejected him without hesitation. She had studied finance in school. Of course, she also knew that there would be door-to-door financial products. Half of them were scammers, and the other half were loan sharks. Regardless of which one it was, Portia didn't want to come into contact with it. Portia was about to close the door when Peter blocked the gap with his foot. "Miss Portia, the loan product we provide doesn't charge interest as long as it's within a specified time limit. Are you really not going to consider it? I know how your company operates very well." Portia smiled at Peter. There were three things in this world that absolutely should not be touched: gambling, drugs, and loan sharks. Any one of these three things could ruin a family. Loan sharks were even worse than the first two. There was at least a small chance of quitting gambling and drugs. However, loan sharks were often not something that the borrower could decide. Many people even became slaves to loan sharks for the rest of their lives, repaying money that could never be repaid. Loan sharks didn't charge interest if they paid the money within a specified time limit. Loan sharks didn't lie about that. However, the problem was that the time limit they gave was very short. Most people would borrow money from loan sharks because they were short of money. How could they pay back the money in a short period of time? Unless they suddenly won the lottery or inherited a large sum of money. However, most people wouldn't be so lucky. Therefore, in most cases, the result of the borrower was to exceed the time limit given by the loan sharks. Usually, the interest-free period given by the usury was 3 months. 3 months sounds like a long time. Most borrowers felt that borrowing money was an emergency. In fact, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to pay the money back. Every finance and economics teacher's first lecture was on how to identify illegal funds and how to avoid falling into debt traps. Moreover, when the teachers were teaching, they didn't use any technical content to explain. They were using real cases to illustrate the point. Moreover, every story ended with a cruel ending. Some of them wanted to treat their family members, while others wanted to do business to raise funds for emergencies. In short, there were all sorts of reasons for the emergency, but the result was that everything was ruined. "Sir, please leave my house." Portia was not afraid of them. They might have a background in the underworld, but as long as he didn't owe them money, they couldn't do anything to him. Although usury was an illegal business, they still needed to be trustworthy. In this respect, he was similar to most businessmen. It was impossible for them to force others to borrow money. Peter could only take back his foot. "Miss Portia, this is my name card. If you need it, you can call me any time. We can also talk about the interest-free period." Portia looked like she was 1,000 miles away. She didn't even take the name card. "If I need money, I can borrow money any time. My boss's interest is much lower than yours. Also, he's much richer than you." Portia wasn't lying. Qin Zhao was indeed willing to lend her money. And he could borrow as much as he wanted. As for the safety issue, Qin Zhao only wanted the same interest from the bank. Portia was obviously more willing to trust Qin Zhao, not the infamous usury. In fact, there were many ways to calculate interest from usury. There were too many traps in their contracts. "I wonder who Miss Portia's boss is. Can you introduce him to me?" Peter's expression was dark. He had misunderstood Portia's words. He thought that Portia's boss was also a usury. Los Angeles had always been Saint and Finance's territory. Portia saying that Qin Zhao was richer sounded more like a provocation to Peter. "Aren't you very resourceful? You can investigate it yourself. Let's go." Peter left with a dark expression. Portia closed the door. Suddenly, Zephyr's voice came from behind. "Your words might bring trouble to you and your boss." Why did you suddenly appear behind me?" "You scared me." Portia patted her chest. She also regretted talking too much. Those usually weren't kind people. They wouldn't really cause trouble for Chen Zhao because of this, right? "Boss, we might have a competitor in LA. Competitor? What organization dares to compete with US in LA? "I don't know. I need to investigate," Peter said. Pete said. "It was originally a potential customer, but this potential customer said that her boss also gives loans, and the interest is much lower than ours." This was Peter's occupational disease. In fact, private loans and usury were two different things. But Peter didn't care. He felt that those who borrowed money were all usury. In fact, everyone in this industry thought the same. "Give me this person's information. I'll investigate." "Portia, huh? This person works for a law firm. Strange, the owner isn't rich. She probably doesn't have the money to provide loans." The person on the other end paused. Suddenly, she said, "All the lawyers in this law firm seem to be Chen Zhao's private lawyer." "Chen's private lawyer? What does he need so many lawyers for?" Boss, he must be avoiding legal trouble. If he's just a normal person, why does he need so many lawyers? It must be him. That makes sense. The boss thought for a moment and said, Go contact him. If he's willing to compensate and leave LA, we'll forget about this. What if he's not willing? It's up to you. Do what you think is right. Boss, I understand. I'll give you a satisfactory answer. Chapter 1949. Sainton Finance Company was a very famous finance company in North America. It could often be seen on Wall Street. Moreover, Sainton Finance Company also had another unknown business, which was usury. Not everyone had access to the Sainton Finance Company. Their clients were mainly those with a certain ability to make money. Due to various reasons, their finances were in a short period of time. At this time, Shingen would actively contact them. Sainton Finance Company had a very long history. It appeared along with the history of the United States and grew together with the strength of the United States. In the history of Sainton Finance, there had been several usurpations of power. But in the end, they all ended in failure. No matter how meticulous the subordinates' plans were, they could not escape the fate of failure. Rumor had it that Sainton Finance Company was in charge of a Black Hand family. When there was an uncontrollable internal situation, the Mafia family would appear. Of course, this situation would not happen again in recent years. Shingen Tower was a brand new building. It was also the tallest building in Los Angeles. It had only been completed in May. From the name, it was obvious that it belonged to Shingen Finance. Shingen liked the feeling of overlooking Los Angeles from the top. Just then, a figure appeared behind Shingen. Shingen frowned. Don't suddenly appear behind me. I hate people who come uninvited. Brother, do you hate your sister that much? A young girl appeared behind Shingen. You're a villain wanted by the entire spiritual world. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Shingen's attitude was as if he was 1,000 miles away. The girl licked her lips. I'm here to borrow some money from you. Shingen frowned. Impossible. Don't be so sure. I have information that you're interested in. There are many things that I'm interested in. What can you give me? Treasure Island, the girl said. I don't believe you. Shingen glanced at his sister. He knew his little sister very well. She was ranked 5th on the spiritual world's top 10 villains. All the negative comments from humans applied to her. The crimes she had committed were too numerous to list. Even though Shingen didn't think of himself as a good person, but compared to his younger sister, he was simply a kind little angel. Big brother, you're hurting my heart. Chui Xin had a heartbroken expression. Your arrival will only bring me big trouble. Those spiritualists are like hunting dogs, attracted by you. I hate this feeling. So, if you don't want me to kill you personally, you'd better leave this place immediately. Leave Los Angeles, Shingen said calmly. Moreover, your bounty seems to have increased again. As for killing his sister, Chui Xin, Shingen did not feel guilty at all. Of course, if a war really broke out between them, Shingen wasn't absolutely confident. After all, he was facing one of the 10 heinous disciples, Calamity. Shingen, I'm here to make a deal with you. Chui Xin's tone suddenly became low. I'm also very serious. I hate you. Chui Xin, get out of my territory. Humph! I'm sure you'll find me again. With that, Chui Xin suddenly broke through the floor-to-ceiling glass wall and disappeared into the night. Shingen grinned. Damn you! This floor-to-ceiling window costs more than $100,000. The weather was not good today. The sea breeze was rather strong. The sky was dark and it seemed like it would rain at any time. The waves were also a little big, so the children stayed at home and didn't go out to play. Portia, what's making you so happy? Is it because I gave you next month's salary in advance yesterday? I found a roommate, Portia said. My new roommate is paying me $2,000 a month. I remember that your house is only a little more than $3,000 a month. My roommate isn't as stingy as you. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, her face full of disdain. You better be careful with your words. Be careful, or I'll make you pay me now. The terrible weather made Qin Zhao feel rather depressed. He wasn't afraid of the waves, but he was afraid of giving a bad example to the children. After all, he was still swimming in such a storm. The children would think that if Qin Zhao wasn't afraid, they wouldn't be afraid either. Qin Zhao would occasionally ask Wright for advice. Wright was an education expert. She wasn't just the principal of a university. She had been a teacher for many years, including elementary schools, middle schools, universities, and even kindergartens and early childhood classes. Wright had told Qin Zhao that children would learn from adults. Even adults would learn some of their parents' habits. Not to mention children who hadn't fully matured. Therefore, adults definitely couldn't give children the wrong example. Just then, two unfamiliar commercial vehicles entered the entrance of the Minghui villa. Qin Zhao received the message from the butler system and couldn't help but frown. The butler system couldn't find the identity of the owners of the two cars. Qin Zhao walked out of the house and saw 10 people in black suits get out of the two cars. The leader was a man with a small mustache and an uncomfortable fake smile. "Hello, you must be Mr. Qin?" Peter walked up and extended his hand. Qin Zhao didn't extend it. He put his hands in his pockets and looked at Peter coldly. "Do I know you? Then let me introduce myself. I'm the person in charge of Saint and Finance Company. My name is Peter. Oh, what can I do for you? I heard that Mr. Qin has the same business as us," Peter said with a faint smile. With a faint smile, Peter said, "I don't think the market in Los Angeles is big, and the economic environment in the past 2 years is not optimistic, so I think Mr. Qin should go to other places to do business. Los Angeles can't accommodate more people in the same industry. Of course, we will give you a satisfactory price for your business and channels in Los Angeles." "Then what's your price?" Qin Zhao's expression was as cold as usual. $1 million. I think Mr. Qin will give us face, right? Slap! Qin Zhao casually slapped Peter. "Go back to where you came from." Peter was stunned by Qin Zhao's slap. You dare to hit me?" Peter covered his face and stared at Qin Zhao in disbelief. "You came to my house to blackmail me. Shouldn't I hit you?" Qin Zhao glanced at the people Peter had brought and said coldly, "Whoever dares to draw a gun in my house will die here today. Do it. Kill him for me." Pete had never been humiliated like this. Chapter 1950. The moment the first man took out his gun, Qin had already punched him in the chest. Everyone saw that the chest of the man in black had caved in. Then, he fell to the ground and thick blood seeped out of his mouth. The other men instinctively took out their guns. Qin grabbed a man's neck and used only a bit of strength. The man's neck was completely broken. Qin Yu suddenly stopped killing and looked at his hands in confusion. "Weird, why did I lose control of my emotions?" Qin asked himself. The other men all pointed their guns at Qin. Qin glanced at the men in black. That emotion surged up again. "I'll count to 3. Put down your guns. It's for your own good." Qin controlled his emotions. Weird, something was affecting his emotions. Was it these people? No, there wasn't anything about them that made him feel strange. They were just ordinary people. The black-clothed men were also frightened. They'd never seen someone like Qin who would kill people without a word. This made them very nervous, and they didn't dare to put down their guns. Suddenly, a man in black loaded a gun. But the sound of the gun being loaded stimulated Qin again. Qin instantly appeared in front of the black-clothed man. He reached out and twisted his head. The black-clothed man slowly fell in front of Qin. Qin looked at Peter. "Who told you to come?" "My boss." "Call him here," Qin said coldly. Qin vaguely sensed that the weather seemed to have affected his emotions. No, it couldn't be considered an influence. It was more like magnifying his emotions. Peter looked at Qin hesitantly. "Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who our boss is?" Qin closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying his best to control his emotions. "Cut the crap." Chen wasn't interested in listening to Peter explain who his boss was. Chen didn't like this feeling. Logically speaking, Chen's spiritual power should be immune to this kind of spiritual spell. But reality wasn't like that. Chen didn't know who had cast the spell. But the spell had indeed affected him. "Maybe I should get someone else to contact your boss," Jen said murderously. Just then, Portia poked her head out. She saw the dead men on the ground. Chen turned to look at Portia. Portia was shocked. She had never seen Chen's face like this. "Portia, close the door and don't let the children out." Portia immediately closed the door with a grave expression. Fortunately, although Jen lost control of his emotions, he didn't lose his mind. "Hurry up, my patience is running out." Pete picked up the phone. He could feel it. Chen was not joking with him. Peter dialed St. Anne's number with trepidation. "Boss. I'm in trouble." "What kind of trouble? He's in the police station?" No. I'm at Mingwe Villa on the Coast Road. I'm at the house of our colleague. He said he wanted to talk to you face to face. Didn't you tell him my identity?" Just then, Jen picked up the phone. "I don't know who you are, but I hate stupidity. Either you come over yourself, or I'll kill all your subordinates and then go find you. Do you know what you're saying? Do you know who I am? You and your men seem to only know how to make empty threats. Fine, I'll find you and go myself. Don't regret it." Saint Anne was also furious. No one had ever dared to talk to him like this. Saint Anne had never been so furious. But very soon, Saint Anne sobered up. Saint Anne shook his head heavily and forced himself to calm down. "Damn, that damn Chui Si. She released her territory. What does she want?" Although Saint Anne had calmed down, he still decided to meet the man who dared to threaten him. Jen stood there. He didn't even dare to return to the house. These emotions came in waves. The suppressed anger would be reignited in the next moment. Pete and the people he brought were in great pain. Even though they had guns in their hands, they still felt immense pressure. It seemed that the person standing before them wasn't a human. Rather, it was a ferocious beast. Jen looked up at the sky. The dark clouds didn't look like magic. It was more like someone's territory. Jen wanted to see what effect this territory had on him. Suddenly, he discovered that the immortal power in him was very active. It was this activity that amplified his manic emotions. With his immortal power, no matter how high his mental power was, he couldn't control his emotions. In other words, this territory was a trigger. What was really affecting him was his immortal power. No wonder. Jen was dazed. Who exactly did this territory belong to? Or was it a person? He had to control his immortal power and his power. Finally, he had to control his emotions. To control his immortal power, he first had to understand what was causing it to be so active. However, Qin Zhao soon discovered that by using his own domain to block this unfamiliar domain, he could directly block the influence of this domain. He didn't know who released this territory, but it was undeniably powerful. It covered all of Los Angeles. Even the surrounding areas like Mingwe Villa couldn't avoid it. Moreover, this territory could affect all the spiritualists in the city. Even the surrounding areas like Mingwe Villa couldn't avoid it. Ordinary people didn't have magic or immortal power, so they weren't affected. Or people like Jen, who had a territory, couldn't be affected either. But spiritualists who were above ordinary people couldn't avoid it. This territory was silent and almost undetectable. If it wasn't for the people from Xing'an's finance company provoking him, Jen still couldn't discover the territory's influence on him. Before, he'd only been a bit irritated. Only when facing these people did he realize that he could start a massacre. Suddenly, a surge of power descended from the sky. A figure descended from the sky. Xing'an was wearing a Superman costume and looking down at Jen. Jen was stunned. Peter and the men in black he'd brought were all stunned. They stared at Xing'an in shock. Xing'an just floated in the air. He gave off the illusion that he was really Superman. "Are you the one who wants to see me?" Saint and asked in an arrogant tone as he looked at Jen. Chapter 1951. Xing'an had been enjoying this process. But all of this was ruined by Chen Zhao's words. Peter and the others were shocked by Xing'an's unbelievable actions. Their boss could fly? He was really flying. Was he really Superman? Xing'an suddenly charged at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stood there and reached out to grab Xing'an, who happened to be charging over. He pinched Xing'an's face with one hand and moved closer. "You're not human. What are you?" Xing'an struggled with all his might. His strength was equally shocking. But he couldn't break free from Chen Zhao's grasp. This shocked him greatly. A human definitely couldn't defeat him in strength. Not only did Chen Zhao's strength not weaken, but it also grew stronger. Chen Zhao was also shocked. Xing'an's resistance wasn't weak. It was at least tens of thousands of tons of strength. At this moment, Xing'an could already feel that he was indeed inferior in terms of strength. So, he had to use his trump card. Xing'an's strength skyrocketed. Moreover, his body started transforming in an inhuman way. At the same time, his body exuded a terrifying sense of oppression. Dragon aura? Dragon? Chen Zhao looked at Xing'an in shock. The strength in his hands suddenly increased. Chen Zhao almost crushed Xing'an's skull. Xing'an's transformation was forcefully interrupted. He immediately returned to his human form. Peter and the others were scared out of their wits. What just happened? Just now, Xing'an had displayed a part of his dragon form. In their eyes, it was completely beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, Chen Zhao's hand loosened. He grabbed nothing. Xing'an's body shrunk rapidly until he was only the size of a fist. At the same time, he used this opportunity to escape. Soon, Xing'an's body returned to his dragon form. But he didn't. He was still the size of a fist. Bang! Chen Zhao was sent flying. He really couldn't defend against Xing'an's move. Xing'an wasn't as strong as him, but the shrinking spell didn't weaken him at all. He was still terrifying. Moreover, his shrunken body also made it harder for him to be captured and attacked. Xing'an's body was very small, but his aura was terrifying. Dragon aura enveloped the entire Minghui villa. Under the dragon's might, Chen Zhao's children all fell into panic. Chen Zhao was furious again. He glared at Xing'an. "I'm going to kill you!" Chen Zhao used his strongest form, clone. All techniques returned to one, dark assimilation, eye of power, mighty god. Xing'an felt uneasy. There was no aura on Chen Zhao. But Chen Zhao was a huge threat to him. Moreover, Chen Zhao was absorbing and controlling the power of the world. Even if Chen Zhao didn't go into his strongest form, he was still stronger than Xing'an. However, Saint and was too small. In addition, Chen Zhao did not have an advantage in terms of speed. Therefore, he needed to gain an advantage in speed as well. The next moment, Chen Zhao suddenly appeared before Xing'an. Without any hesitation, a fist shadow with terrifying killing intent blasted Xing'an's body. Xing'an's body was sent flying like a cannonball. Bang! The whole Yan crashed into the sea, causing huge waves to surge up into the sky. However, the moment he crashed into the sea, Xing'an's aura disappeared. Dead? No, he escaped. Chen Zhao's expression was extremely dark. The small world enveloped the nearby sea. Xing'an could not be found at all. However, Chen Zhao did not plan to let Xing'an go. Instead, he returned to the shore and looked at the frightened people. Chen Zhao killed all the men in black. Only Pete was left. Peter was trembling in fear. He looked at Chen Zhao, whose hands were covered in blood. Pete almost peed his pants in fear. He felt that he had accidentally gotten himself involved in a terrible battle. Chen Zhao waved his hand lightly. Dark lava spread out from under his feet. Then it devoured the corpses. Chen Zhao looked at Pete. "Where does your boss live?" Xing'an kept vomiting blood and ran home with difficulty. No one knew this place. It was also his hiding place. However, the moment he ran back, he felt a familiar aura. Chui Xin, how do you know this place? Xing'an wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Chui Xin looked at Xing'an in shock. Who beat you up like this? Xing'an's appearance was too pitiful. Chui Xin and Xing'an had been siblings for 400 years, but she had never seen her brother so pitiful. After all, Xing'an had always been stronger than her. There was a limit to how strong he could be, but he was still strong. Chui Xin knew very well that if they fought with their lives, Xing'an's chances of winning were more than 80%. But now, Xing'an was heavily injured. Xing'an was now half human, half dragon. He should have had a pair of dragon horns, but only one was left. One of his arms was broken and hung before him. His body was covered in blood. Sainton looked at Chui Xian with a cold look in his eyes. Go away! Otherwise, I won't go easy on you. My dear brother, do you think you can beat me now? Chui Xian smiled at Xing'an. Yes, I can't beat you now, but the person who injured me can. If he can beat me up like this, he can beat you up too, Xing'an said coldly. If you don't want to leave, then we'll die together. I'll lure that dragon slayer over. Hearing the words dragon slayer, Chui Xian's expression changed. Dragon slayers, as the name suggested, were people who slayed dragons. And the person who had been chasing her was a dragon slayer. Since when did a dragon slayer appear who could injure you so badly? Chui Xian's tone was solemn. Dragon slayers rarely fought against evil dragons alone. After all, the power of an adult dragon was not something that one or two people could fight alone. Unless it was the top existence among the humans. But those few wouldn't attack the dragon race. Unless the dragon race went overboard. But from what Xing'an said, it seemed like he was beaten up by a single person. This made Chui Xian's heart sound alarms. After all, Xing'an wasn't an evil dragon. But she was a real evil dragon. If the dragon slayer were to encounter her, the dragon slayer would definitely not let her go. Even if we work together, we won't be a match for that dragon slayer? I don't know, but I can't fight back against him. Xing'an coughed up another mouthful of blood. Chui Xian looked at Xing'an, her eyes flickering. Brother, take out your treasures and recruit our people, Chui Xian said. Don't even think about it. Xing'an roared hysterically. He was a dragon, a greedy one. Chapter 1952. Just like the legends said, dragons were greedy. Xing'an was like that, and so was Chui Xian. However, Chui Xian was an evil dragon. She had no time to collect her treasures. Her life, no, it should be the life of a dragon. She had spent her entire life on the run. But Xing'an was different. He had never been defined as an evil dragon. In the agreement between dragons and humans, if a dragon was defined as an evil dragon, then humans were allowed to kill it. Of course, whether or not they could kill it was up to the humans. That was why the group of dragon slayers, or rather, a profession, was born among humans. Their mission was to kill and slay dragons. How to define an evil dragon? That was the result of mutual discussion between humans and dragons. Xing'an and Chui Xian were two typical examples. Although what Xing'an did was illegal, it was still within the rules of humans. He did not actively use his abilities. Even if he was punished by human law, he could not use the power of the dragon race to harm humans. The only thing he could do was to run away. But Chui Xian was different. Almost all of her actions went against the agreement between dragons and humans. She did not care about the agreement, or the rules. To her, humans were weaklings. That was why her actions became more and more unscrupulous. That was why she became one of the top 10 villains of the supernatural world. She was ranked 5th and had the title of Calamity. And among the dragon race, she was not the only evil dragon. There were quite a lot of evil dragons who were wanted. That was why if Xing'an was willing to take out his wealth, he would definitely be able to recruit many evil dragons. However, as a greedy dragon, Xing'an had accumulated hundreds of years of wealth. The greed of the dragon race for wealth was unimaginable to humans. No matter how greedy humans were, they would pass on their wealth to their descendants before they died. But there was no such thing as inheritance in the dragon race. Even if the dragon clan were to die, they would still tightly hold onto their wealth. They would definitely bring their wealth into their coffins. There were also dragons who would die in their own treasure troves, letting their corpses and treasures be buried together forever. Who knew how many dragon race legacies were hidden all over the world? Shingen was the same, or even more ridiculous. Even in the face of death, he would not give up on his wealth. Recruiting evil dragons of the same race? With the greed of the dragon race, how much money would it take to satisfy the appetite of those evil dragons? He would probably have to contribute all the wealth he had accumulated over hundreds of years. If he had to take out all his wealth, he might as well just kill him. I've long known that you're here for my treasures. Don't even think about it. Don't ever think about it. Shingen gritted his teeth as he glared at Cui Xin. Cui Xin also looked at Shingen with hatred in her eyes. You're so heavily injured, but you still came here. It's because your treasure is hidden here, you miser. Qin Zhao didn't have high hopes. However, when he arrived at the Shingen building, he did not find Shingen, which made him very disappointed. Peter stood behind Qin Zhao, trembling. Panic was written all over his face. Qin Zhao's mood worsened. Peter saw Qin Zhao punch through a load-bearing wall. If that terrifying power were to land on his body, he would definitely die. Half of his body would probably be smashed into smithereens. Does your boss have any other hiding places? Qin Zhao asked. I don't know. Peter was trembling all over. Facing Qin Zhao, he felt too much pressure. Qin Zhao was like a mountain that hung over his heart. Qin Zhao didn't expect a dragon to be hiding in the L.A. area. Shingen was also very powerful. Out of all the enemies Qin Zhao had met, Shingen was definitely in the top 5. The first was, of course, Tamamo no Mei. The second was the son of Element, Amanda Didier. Shingen was actually about as powerful as the dragon Qin Zhao had met on the 9th level of the Tower of Trials. But this was the power of the dragon race. However, Shingen was much more powerful than that. Shingen also had powerful magic. For example, he could shrink himself so that it was harder to hit and deal with him. Imagine a giant dragon's body shrinking to the size of a fist under the condition that its strength did not change. What would the consequences be? It was almost undefeatable. His ability to escape was also unparalleled. At least, Qin Zhao still didn't know how Shingen had escaped. What kind of magic did he use to escape? When Qin Zhao returned to Minghua Villa, Fei Lai was already there. Qin, I heard that you killed a few people at your house today? Fei Lai asked. Portia said that? You should be careful. No matter what, killing people at home is too bad of an influence. It's my fault. Qin Zhao didn't argue. Portia, it's me. Portia received Qin Zhao's call. Today wasn't a pleasant experience for Portia. She knew that Qin Zhao would kill people. She'd also seen him do it. However, someone had attacked Qin Zhao first. Qin Zhao was forced to fight back. However, she didn't know what exactly had happened today. She didn't see Peter clearly. She didn't know that she was the one who'd caused all this. How are you? I'm fine. Boss, who are those people? Bad people. Qin Zhao didn't plan on explaining anything to Portia either. He didn't feel like he had to. He was the boss, not Portia's subordinate. If Portia couldn't accept it, she could leave. If today's loss affects you in any way, I can give you a few days to rest. Okay, I understand. She indeed needed to calm down now. After all, the scene was too shocking for her. As soon as she hung up, Portia heard the door open. Zephyra was back. When she saw Portia, she was a bit surprised. Portia, did something happen to you today? You look really pale. I saw my boss kill someone, Portia said. You saw your boss kill someone? Was he going to silence you? No, then why didn't you call the police? Those people broke into his house with guns, Portia said. He had enough reason to kill them. Really? So your boss didn't kill you? If he wanted to kill me, he would have done it in my house. There's no need to wait until now. You can set my number as an emergency number. If you're in danger, I might be able to help. Okay, let's not talk about this. You'll cook dinner tonight. Chapter 1953. Portia was waiting for Riva to make dinner in the living room. Because of the fright, Portia did not have the time to have dinner at Mingwe Villa. Just then, Riva's phone on the living room table rang. Portia saw the name on the screen, Dragon Slayer Lux. Riva, you're on the phone, Portia called. Riva quickly ran out to pick up the phone. Riva, it's me, Lux. We found traces of the calamity Chui Xin. She appeared at the magic store today and bought a lot of potions and raw materials. It seems that she's injured. Are you sure she's in the city now? Yes, we've set up a detection magic array around Los Angeles. If a dragon goes in or out, we'll be able to detect it. Okay, got it. Contact me immediately if there's any news, Riva said. After Riva hung up, Portia came up to her. Riva, are you playing a game? Riva looked at Portia and nodded after a moment of silence. Yes. I knew it. Portia nodded confidently. What game are you playing with your friend? Oh, the vegetables in the pot are burnt. Riva suddenly ran to the kitchen in a panic. While they were eating dinner, Refra called again. Portia, I'm going out tonight. Now? It's so late. Will it be dangerous for you to go out alone? Portia looked at Riva with concern. Why do you have to go out now? Can't you go out tomorrow? In America, going out at night had always been a dangerous thing. 80% of criminal cases happened at night. This was not China. Even if a girl lay on the street for a night, nothing would happen. It was more likely that the person who was found would call the police. It's urgent. Riva stopped eating and went back to her room to clean up. Before leaving, she carried a suitcase. Riva drove the car to the front of a forest. Just then, another person came. It was Elux. Elux carried a pair of axes on his back. He was tall and strong. He was wearing a small vest and military boots. He looked very heroic. However, when talking to Riva, Elux was obviously talking to her in a subordinate tone. Zafra, you came so fast. What did you find here? Zephyr asked. We detected a huge energy reaction here. As dragon slayers, each of them carried some kind of apparatus with them. It could detect energy reactions within a certain range. Of course, this kind of detection device could only work on high-energy reactions. Most of the evil dragons they hunted were extremely vicious and powerful. However, the range of this detection device was only 10 kilometers. A diameter of 10 kilometers was neither too big nor too small. Just the two of us? Zephyr asked. If Chui Xin the Calamity had left, the two of us dragon slayers would have become her food. The others are also rushing over. There were far more dragon slayers in Los Angeles than the two of them. There were a total of 12 dragon slayers, and their leader was the seemingly young Zafra. Their group of dragon slayers had successfully killed an evil dragon. Hunting down an evil dragon was not a problem that could be solved with just 1 or 2 battles. Both sides needed to compete for a long time. In terms of pure strength, the evil dragon was undoubtedly the stronger side. However, humans were good at using all kinds of conditions and traps. Not every dragon slayer group could succeed. However, the advantage of the dragon slayers was in numbers. If one group was destroyed, another group would take over. Perhaps 10, 20, 50 years, or even 100 years was possible in order to hunt down an evil dragon. Zephyr could lead a group to kill an evil dragon. Apart from her outstanding leadership skills, it also showed that her group was strong enough. Zephyr would not undervalue herself, but she would not be arrogant either. Against any evil dragon, one could not be careless or underestimate the enemy. No matter what, the dragon slayers would always be at a disadvantage. Their only advantage was their cautiousness and perseverance. Evil dragons would get tired of carrying around after a long escape, but the dragon slayers would not. The dragon slayers were born with a lot of extraordinary experiences and training. Whether it was the spirit or the body, they had already surpassed ordinary people. From the firearms and magical equipment of humans to their own combat magic, they were all top-notch existences. Zephyra and Elux entered the forest. In the rugged mountain road, the two still walked as if they were flying, as if they were walking on flat ground. This kind of environment was not even a regular test for the two of them. The harsh environment they had experienced was the limit of humans. Just then, Zephyra suddenly stopped. Elux looked at Zephyra and asked, "What's wrong? Did you find anything? Did you find anything special about this environment?" Elux frowned and looked around. "This place is surrounded by mountains and faces the sea in the southwest. It's an excellent place to grow dragon heart grass." "That's right." Zephyra nodded. "This is probably a place where dragons grow dragon heart grass, and it's not Calamity Chui seeing. It's probably another dragon." "You're saying that there's a second dragon in the Los Angeles area?" "Dragon heart grass is a magic herb used by dragons to heal themselves, and Calamity Chui Sean bought a lot of potions from magic stores. But she did not fight with us in Los Angeles, so it's not that she was injured. It's very likely that another dragon in the Los Angeles area was injured, so she came out to collect healing potions and magic herbs. If that's the case, we're in trouble. It's already very difficult for us to deal with Calamity Chui Sean, and now we have to deal with a second dragon. We have almost no chance of winning. But think about it carefully. Who was the one who injured the second dragon? Who?" Elux was not good at using his brain. His strength was similar to Zephyra's. But in terms of leadership, action planning, and intelligence analysis, he was far inferior to Zephyra. That was why Zephyra was the leader of the small team, not Elux. There are three possibilities. One is that the dragons are fighting among themselves, but Chui Sean will take the initiative to find healing materials and potions, so the possibility is very low. The other is that there's another Dragon Slayer team in Los Angeles that is not weaker than us. This is the most likely possibility. What about the third possibility? Chapter 1954. We're in contact with most of the Dragon Slayer teams. If other teams come to Los Angeles, they'll probably inform us. So, if it's not the first two possibilities, there's also a possibility that there's a powerful spiritualist or individual in Los Angeles. This possibility is the lowest. After all, in the spiritual world, the only two people who are confident in going against an adult dragon are the Scarlet Church's 23rd generation Blood Mary and Huaxia's Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sex Zhang Tianyi. Zephyra analyzed. But they wouldn't come to Los Angeles for no reason and come here without a trace. Of course, if it's the second possibility, maybe the Dragon Slayer team sneaked in to cover up. Being a Dragon Slayer was a high-risk industry, so it was understandable that there would be confidentiality measures. Just then, the two found a huge claw mark on the ground. "It's here." Zephyra stood in front of the mark. Elux squatted down and examined the huge mark. There was an irregular hole in the center of the mark. Something seemed to have been pulled out. "From the marks, it's Calamity Chui Sean. The Dragonheart grass was pulled out from here." The Dragonheart grass was like grass to the Dragon clan. But to humans, it was a big tree. Because the situation was unclear, Zephyra felt complicated. She didn't know if it was good or bad. There was one more dragon on their mission list. If two dragons came together, a single Dragon Slayer team wouldn't be able to deal with them. But if there was another Dragon Slayer team in Los Angeles, and one that could seriously injure a dragon, that would definitely be a powerful reinforcement. "Let's go." The two were about to leave. Suddenly, Zephyra and Elux's equipment sounded alarms. "Not good, something's coming. Use Shadow Cloak immediately." Shadow Cloak was used to hide all of one's aura and traces. It was mainly used to prevent the dragon's perception, because the dragon's perception was too sharp and powerful. There was almost no chance of winning in a head-on fight. In most cases, a dragon slayer's first attack would be a sneak attack. Therefore, Shadow Cloak was very important. Shadow Cloak not only hid one's aura, but also all of the user's perception. This was one of the flaws of the Shadow Cloak. Normally, when a dragon slayer fought an evil dragon, he would lie in ambush at a predetermined location. They had no way of knowing whether the evil dragon had arrived or not, so they had to wait for others to send a signal. There were only 2 of them at this moment, and they weren't prepared at all. Be it in terms of equipment or mentality, they were not prepared. There was absolutely no chance of winning against the evil dragon at this time. That was why Zephyr immediately gave the order to hide with Shadow Cloak. The moment they disappeared, Qin Zhao descended from the sky. Qin Zhao saw the huge claw mark. Without a doubt, this claw mark was left behind by the Dragon Clan. Qin Zhao couldn't tell if it was Saint Anne's claw mark. However, he naturally thought that the claw mark was left by Saint Anne. Am I too late? Qin Zhao's expression was ugly. There was some dragon aura left at the scene. That kind of powerful enemy would be a huge problem if they were allowed to live for another day. Therefore, Chen Zhao searched through the night. He wanted to find Xing'an as soon as possible and kill him. According to Peter's investigation, this mountain forest was a property under Saint Anne's name. Tonight, Qin Zhao had searched many of Saint Anne's properties. But he couldn't find any trace of Saint Anne. Qin Zhao would have to leave in a few days. If Saint Anne came back for revenge when he wasn't here, how would his family defend? Qin Zhao's bad mood was magnified again. Looking at the forest before him, Qin Zhao destroyed it wantonly. The huge shadow of a fist smashed down with the power of the world. The terrifying shockwave directly uprooted the ground and trees in the vicinity. After the attack, Qin Zhao finally controlled his emotions and flew away. This unknown territory was really troublesome. If he wasn't careful, he would be affected by it. Qin Zhao didn't realize that his attack just now had exposed 2 figures from the shadows. However, the terrifying impact still seriously injured Zephyr and Elux. Their minds were a bit dazed. They couldn't find the dragon anymore. That saved them from the disaster. However, this terrifying power still shocked them, and even frightened them. This definitely wasn't Calamity Chui Xin. It was probably a higher-level dragon. They didn't understand why the dragon was so furious and destroyed this place like this. But they were sure that they would be in trouble if they had to face the dragon. Zephyr, how are you? Very bad. I broke a few ribs. Zephyr's body was still straight, but that was just on the surface. As a dragon slayer, she wouldn't show any weakness even when she was injured. Aman is nearby. I'll tell him to come and pick us up. There's no need. That dragon might not have gone far. We can't let Aman get involved. Inform our men to retreat. If we've been exposed, we can't let our other teammates get involved. But your injury, it's fine. I won't die, Zephyr said coldly. For the next 3 days, we must not have any physical contact with our teammates. Maybe the dragon is watching us in the dark, said Zephyr with a cold face. I understand. Zephyr's heart was heavy. The situation had become more and more complicated. The dragon definitely wasn't Calamity Chui Xin, but a higher-level dragon. And the dragon wasn't something their team could fight against. Of course, it wasn't all bad news. That dragon might not be an evil dragon, and it might not be their enemy. But now, she could only comfort herself like this. After all, they were facing an enemy that they couldn't defeat at all. Deep in the night, Portia was sleeping soundly when someone knocked on the door. In her pajamas, Portia opened the door in the dark. Just then, she saw Zephyr leaning against the door frame. She was covered in dirt. Her face and clothes were also covered in wounds and blood. Zephyr, what's wrong? I'm fine. Can you help me in? Zephyr asked weakly. She'd been holding on all the way. When they reached the door, she still revealed her weakest side. Chapter 1955. Portia hurriedly helped Refra back into the room. Bear with it. I'll call an ambulance. Don't call an ambulance. I'm fine, Refra said with difficulty. Why? You're hurt like this. Portia looked at Refra anxiously. I said I'm fine. Help me into my room. Portia helped Refra back into the room. Zevra said in a weak voice, There's a bottle in my desk drawer. Bring it to me. Portia opened the drawer. There was a bottle of white liquid inside. However, there was no brand on it. Portia didn't know what kind of medicine it was. Portia brought the bottle to Refra, hesitating whether to give it to her or not. Refra, are you sure the liquid in the bottle is drinkable? I think it's best to find a professional doctor. I know what I'm doing. Even in her weakest state, Refra was still very conscious. Okay. Portia handed the bottle to Refra. Refra opened the bottle and drank the white liquid in one gulp. The liquid in the bottle could only temporarily relieve her injuries. She had other medicines, but most of them could only be used when she was in real danger. She couldn't use them now. Portia was still worried. After a long hesitation, she said, Refra, our boss is a doctor. I'll ask him to take a look at your injuries. Don't worry, our boss won't tell anyone about your injuries. Refra also hesitated for a while, but she finally nodded. Okay. Portia immediately called Chen Zhao. Portia, give me a reason not to kill you. Chen Zhao's tone was rather nasty. Do you know what time it is? Boss. There's a problem at home. My roommate is hurt. Send her to the hospital if she's hurt. Why are you calling me? Aren't you an illegal doctor? Then? I want to hire you now. Ha! Portia, do you know how much I get paid? How much? Including the price for disturbing my sleep, I'll give you a discount. $2 million. Portia's voice immediately became sharp and resounding. Are you crazy? How could anyone pay such a high price? You know that $2 million might not be enough to hire me. If I don't know you, you'll have to pay more. I don't have that much money. You can pay on credit. Write me an IOU. I have no money, Portia said angrily. All right then, I'm going to bed. Good night. Boss, I'm really in a hurry. We'll talk tomorrow. With that, he hung up. Portia angrily smashed the phone on the floor. Bastard, 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 this bastard. After venting her frustrations, Portia picked up her phone again. Good, good, I didn't break the phone. Portia looked at Zefra apologetically. Zefra, I'm sorry. That bastard refused to come. It's okay. Take a rest first. I'll call the boss in the morning, said Portia. All right. Portia looked at Zefra. Zefra didn't even close her eyes and just laid there weakly. Portia, take a nap. I'm not used to sleeping at a time like this. As a dragon slayer, Zefra had been injured many times. Every time she was injured, she would stay awake the entire time. She would never allow herself to fall into a deep sleep. Portia couldn't understand. Why didn't she sleep with such a serious injury? Why didn't she call a doctor? Zefra, who hurt you? Are you sure we don't need to call the police? I said it's okay. I fell and hurt myself, Zefra said calmly. Fell and hurt? Portia looked at Zefra. Zefra, can't you be more careful with your lies? Portia couldn't feel the sincerity in Zefra's lies at all. Zefra just lay there in silence. Portia stayed up until dawn, helping to take care of Zefra the whole time. Zefra, I think I should raise the rent. Have you ever seen such a responsible roommate? You can go to sleep. I don't need your care. I really don't understand. Why don't you sleep? At least you'll feel better. Portia looked at Zefra. Even she felt uncomfortable. If it were her, she wouldn't be able to sleep anymore. But Zefra was so seriously injured, yet she didn't sleep. Portia dialed Chen Zhao's number again. Boss, if you don't come to treat my friend, I won't be able to go to work. Also, I won't be able to go next week. You're threatening me. I'm not threatening you. Portia's voice softened. I'm just telling you the truth. Just you wait. Chen Zhao was furious. It was already an hour later when Chen Zhao arrived at Portia's house. When he knocked on Portia's door, Portia started to complain. "Boss, you're too slow. Who told you to live so far away? Who told you to pay me so little? I can only live so far away. Who told you not to be capable enough? If you were, I'd pay you more. Who told you to only give me so little work? I didn't even have the chance to show off. If you think the work is too little, I'll be happy to give you more work." Chen Zhao sneered at Portia. After entering Portia's house, Chen Zhao studied the place. "Is this where you're renting? It looks nice." If she hadn't seen Chen Zhao's house, Portia would think that it was nice. But after seeing Minghua Villa and Mirror Lake Villa, Portia felt that her house was shabby. Chen Zhao's words were even more hypocritical. Chen Zhao sniffed. "What a heavy smell of blood! Is it your friend's blood?" "Yes, she vomited a few mouthfuls of blood last night." Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, complaining. "She didn't sleep at all last night. Her eyes were wide open the whole time. I feel bad just looking at her. She's so injured and still won't sleep. I don't know what she's thinking. Why didn't you call an ambulance? Did you call the police?" Chen Zhao asked. "She won't let me." "Won't let me? Why?" "I don't know." Portia brought Chen Zhao into Zephyr's room. However, the room was empty. There was no one on the bed. Suddenly, Chen Zhao saw Zephyr hiding behind the door. Zephyr attacked him from behind. Without any hesitation, Chen Zhao threw Zephyr over his shoulder, throwing her heavily to the front. Chapter 1956. She smashed the table and fell to the ground, spitting out blood continuously. Boss, what are you doing? I asked you to heal Zevra, not to kill her." Chen Zhao just stood there. "She attacked me first." Zephyr kept vomiting blood, but her strong willpower was still supporting her. "What are you doing, Riva? This is my boss. I asked her to treat you." Riva was a person's habit, even if it was someone Portia had called. She was also used to testing after subduing someone. She was even on guard against Portia. Even if she was injured, a normal person might not be her match. Moreover, she had deliberately planned a sneak attack. She had thought that it would be a sure thing. However, not only had Chen Zhao discovered her sneak attack, he had even counterattacked. This made her wonder if she was really too weak. She couldn't even beat a normal person. Chen Zhao stood there with his arms crossed. "Do you still want treatment? If not, I'm leaving. Also, she doesn't look like she needs treatment. She can actually sneak attack me. Looks like she's quite lively. Boss, she keeps spitting out blood. She looks like she's about to die. Hurry and take a look at Riva. Are you sure she won't attack me again?" "I'm sure. I'm very sure." "Are you right, Riva?" "Sorry." Riva snorted coldly. "Okay, lie back on the bed. I'll take a look." With Portia's help, Riva lay back on the bed. Chen Zhao sat on the edge of the bed. "Is it okay to take off your shirt?" "Yes." Riva nodded slightly. Even though she was in so much pain, she still controlled herself and maintained her rationality and vigilance. Chen Zhao pressed on Riva's chest. "Four ribs are broken." Riva wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. "You broke one. You're in good spirits. You still have the energy to argue with me. How did you get injured? Other than the injuries I caused." "I was injured," Riva said. "What do you do? Agent? Mercenary? Killer? Or an undercover police officer?" Zephyr remained silent. Chen Zhao did not care if she answered his question or not. "Your second broken rib on the left pierced into your lung," Chen Zhao said. "If you're willing, I can do a small surgery for you now." "Sure. This is an anesthetic." "I don't need anesthetics," Zevra said coldly. "Are you sure? This kind of pain is extraordinary. I will cut open the skin on your chest and use bioglue to repair your lungs." Zephyr still had that cool expression on her face as she said, "No problem. Zephyr, you have to think this through. This is an operation. How can it be done without anesthetics? Portia also tried to persuade her. I said no problem. You can do it. Let me make this clear. Although this is a minor surgery, in your condition, you might die from the pain. If you die, don't blame me. I understand. Chen Zhao looked at Portia. Are you sure it's okay? Let's do it. Since Zephyr said so herself. Chen Zhao took out an alcohol bottle. After smearing it evenly on Zephyr's chest, he took out a scalpel. Of course, before using the scalpel, Chen Zhao still had to stop the bleeding with acupuncture. He didn't want to make it too bloody. Also, Zephyr's condition was not suitable for her to lose too much blood. But even so, the scene was inevitably covered in blood. After all, this wasn't an operating room. After ignoring the possibility of a fungal infection, there were still various flaws. Of course, the surgery itself was only a minor one. It was not difficult at all for Chen Zhao. Portia watched Chen Zhao's dazzling surgery process. It was her first time seeing Chen Zhao treat a patient. He was completely different from the stereotype in the past. In the past, Portia's impression of Chen Zhao was that he was undisciplined, frivolous, stingy, and a jerk. But now, Chen Zhao was unprecedentedly serious. Every movement was as smooth as flowing water. From cutting open the abdomen to stitching up the wound, the entire process only took 10 minutes. But for Portia and Zephyr, it felt as long as a century. Chen Zhao looked at Zephyr, who was still conscious. He was astonished by Zephyr's tenacious willpower. He had never seen such a stubborn ordinary person, and a woman at that. The woman did not make a single sound during the operation. After all, Chen Zhao had made a hole in her chest just now. But even though she was trembling from the pain, she still maintained absolute silence. Even Chen Zhao himself could not do this. This made Chen Zhao more interested in Zephyr. It's done. Take an antibiotic every morning, afternoon, and night. The stitches will take 3 days to remove. Is Zephyr done? I've done everything I can. Chen Zhao took out a cigarette and turned to Portia. Do you have a fire? Okay. Portia nodded. Boss, there's a patient here, and this is my house. Also, when did you smoke? Chen Zhao did not smoke often, but he had been very focused just now. Now that he had relaxed, he needed a cigarette to relax. This was the so-called smoke after the fact. She's fine now. With my medical skills, she won't be unable to withstand even a second-hand smoke, Zephyr said weakly. Give me one too. Chen Zhao casually tossed a cigarette to Zephyr. Portia was completely speechless at the two patients. How could a doctor and patient smoke at the same time? That was too irresponsible. Who did this to you? Chen Zhao asked curiously. I feel like you were hit by a car or something even stronger. A car crash. Riva answered and blew out a long smoke ring at the same time. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. He could tell that Zephyr was definitely not hit by a car. Chen Zhao said that her injuries looked like they were caused by a car, but there were other small injuries on her body. There were also the stains on her body, which seemed to be from rolling in the mountains. However, he would never have dreamed that Chen Zhao was the one who caused these injuries. Neither did Zephyr expect that Chen Zhao was the culprit behind her injuries. Boss, how many days does Zephyr need to recover? 3 days, Chen Zhao said. If she's completely healed, we'll see how strong she is. 3 days is enough? Zephyr's injury is so serious, and she even had a small surgery. Chapter 1957. She's much stronger than you, Chen Zhao said. Other than the injuries from last night, Zephyr also had many old injuries. These old injuries didn't make her weak. Instead, they made her stronger. She was like a strong tiger cub. Portia recalled how she couldn't lift the suitcase at all that day. Zephyr, on the other hand, could carry it with one hand. She seemed really strong. Zephyr, is there a little monster living in your body? Sir, you're strong too. After all, I haven't been shoulder thrown in a long time. Zephyr looked at Qin Zhao. However, there was still some dissatisfaction in her tone. After all, she was heavily injured and couldn't even use 20% of her strength. Boss works out every day. Swimming, boxing, running. He's a fitness freak. Zephyr wasn't surprised. Qin Zhao was indeed very strong. Even though she was heavily injured, a normal person couldn't beat her. However, Qin Zhao could throw her over his shoulder when she tried to sneak up on him. After I recover, I'll compete with you again, Zephyr said, dissatisfied. Zafra, you can't beat Boss. He can kill more than a dozen armed bandits by himself. Zephyr ignored Portia's advice. She muttered to herself that she could do it under normal circumstances too. Although the Dragon Slayers were determined, they more or less had some character flaws. For example, Zephyr had been treated as a genius or a monster among her peers since she was young. She'd also developed a proud and unyielding personality. In the past, all of her competitors had been defeated in front of her. Even those who were stronger and more outstanding than her couldn't escape the fate of failure. I'm hungry, Zephyr said. Zephyr, you just had surgery. You can't eat now, right? Portia looked at Qin Zhao. She can eat if she wants. It's fine as long as she doesn't eat stimulating food. Plus, she was injured in her lungs, not her stomach. Okay, I'll go get some food. Portia looked at Qin Zhao. Boss, do you want to eat something? Every day, you're the one who freeloads off me. This time, I'm going to freeload off you too. Boss, I don't have much food in the fridge. Portia knew how big Qin Zhao's appetite was. In her eyes, Qin Zhao was just a moving rice bucket. There was no limit to his appetite. Portia had no choice but to take out all the ingredients in the house. Moreover, she doubted that with so many ingredients, Qin Zhao wouldn't even be 30% full. Very doubtful. Although Qin Zhao had said that Refra would need 3 days to get out of bed, Refra still needed 3 days. However, Zafra did not have that many scruples. Even though he was sweating profusely from the pain, he was still jumping around on the ground. At the dining table, he stuffed himself with food. Especially after seeing how much Qin Zhao ate at the dining table. Zephyr actually had the idea of competing again. He didn't care if he could overeat right now. She learned how Qin Zhao ate. Qin Zhao finished the steak in 10 seconds. She also finished the steak in 10 seconds. Qin Zhao finished the salad in 10 seconds. She did the same. Portia didn't even have the chance to pick up her chopsticks. The 2 moving rice buckets devoured the food on the table at an astonishing speed. Zephyr soon realized that she really couldn't beat Qin Zhao. At least in terms of appetite, she lost completely. Qin Zhao glanced at Zephyr and swallowed the food in his mouth. You can't let yourself eat too much. He could roughly estimate how much Zephyr could eat. Zephyr's normal appetite was about the same as an adult man's. If she forced herself, she could at most eat the food of 2 men. She definitely couldn't eat any more. One had to know that one's stomach could really burst from overeating. Zephyr wiped her mouth unwillingly. I'm not in a good condition today. I usually eat more. Zephyr looked at Qin Zhao's astonishing appetite and eating speed. She actually knew that even in her best condition, she wouldn't be able to eat more than Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao had already eaten the food of 2 people. In less than 30 seconds, he completely devoured a roast chicken. Moreover, he still didn't plan on stopping. He was still devouring the food like a tornado. Can one's appetite also be trained? Zephyr asked. Portia felt that Qin Zhao had led Zephyr astray. She didn't expect Zephyr to be so competitive. She even wanted to compete with her appetite. The more you exercise, the more you eat, Qin Zhao said. Of course, after training, if your stomach gets used to expanding, it can expand by 10 times, but normal people don't recommend it. After all, it's not healthy. Zephyr only heard the first part. She didn't hear Qin Zhao's suggestion at all. This was Zephyr's personality. Even if it was a meaningless thing like appetite, she still wanted to be first. How do you usually train? Zephyr asked. If you're free in the morning, Do 2 triathlons first and 3 at night to help digestion. Also, do some anaerobic exercise. Anaerobic exercise uses up the most stamina. I prefer diving without equipment, Zephyr said. How long can you dive for? Should surpass the world record. About half an hour, Chen Zhao said casually. Currently, the world record for diving without equipment was 20 minutes and 21 seconds. Portia stared at Chen Zhao in shock. She'd indeed seen Chen Zhao dive before. He often dove into the sea and then disappeared for a long time. Zephyr thought about it. Her diving ability was close to the world record. It seemed that she'd lost to Chen Zhao in diving again. Zephyr secretly encouraged herself. She had one more item to beat Chen Zhao. Zephyr pretended to be calm. Very good. What's the depth of your diving equipment? If you want to compete with me, it's meaningless, Chen Zhao said calmly. Chen Zhao's breathing system was basically non-human. It had also evolved and could absorb oxygen in water. He was an enhancer, and his body was countless times stronger than normal people, so water pressure was also meaningless to him. He also had the ability to control water, so he could dive even the deepest trench in the world like it was flat ground. Even the Mariana Trench, a deep sea where even microorganisms couldn't survive, Chen Zhao could dive like it was flat ground. How much? Zephyr asked, unconvinced. Did you reach the world record? Zephyr thought about it and looked up at Chen Zhao. Did you surpass the world record? Chen Zhao nodded. A lot. Chapter 1958. Zephyr was very hurt. In terms of diving depth, she was still far from the world record. The duration of diving was related to the capacity of one's lungs, while the depth was related to one's physical strength. Of course, this did not mean that the world record holder was better than Zephyr. It also involved skills and endurance. That kind of world record was the result of countless attempts, and the final result was obtained. Portia was not surprised at all. Anyway, she often saw Chen Zhao swim. There was no doubt about Chen Zhao's swimming ability. Moreover, Chen Zhao's entire family was astonishingly good at swimming, especially Zherlin and Fei Lai. Fei Lai was a member of the coastal rescue team. Plus, Chen Zhao's monstrous motor skills. Thus, Portia was not surprised by any of Chen Zhao's athletic abilities. Zephyr, I told you, don't think about beating Boss in fitness and sports. He's really unbeatable in this aspect. I saw with my own eyes how he crushed those robbers who attacked him. Portia hated Chen Zhao to the core, but she trusted him completely in this aspect. She really did not think that there was anyone stronger than Chen Zhao in this world. However, she did not expect her words to ignite Zephyr's competitive spirit. I'm not in a good state right now, Zephyr said, unconvinced. When I recover, I can do it too. This meal is really uncomfortable. Chen Zhao picked up a tissue and wiped his mouth and hands. I don't feel anything at all. Portia's eyes were filled with resentment as she stared at Chen Zhao. Boss, this is half a month's worth of food. You ate half a month's worth of food. You ate quite a lot at my place too. What's wrong with just eating one meal from you? Also, it's so uncomfortable. You can't even stimulate my appetite. Chen Zhao stood up and said, I'm going back. Also, remember to come to work in the afternoon, or I'll deduct your salary. Boss, I still have to take care of Zephyr. I don't, Zephyr said indifferently. Zephyr, how can you be like this? You should say something for me. I'm telling the truth. I don't need your care. Boss, I'll go with you. I can even save my gas money. Then how will you come back? I won't lend you my car. I can pay for your car's gas, right? Said Portia. Are you sure? The fuel consumption of each of my cars is much higher than that of your own car. Chen Zhao had never considered the problem of fuel consumption. All the cars he chose were based on performance and comfort. Forget it, I'll just drive my own car. Portia looked as if she had nothing left to live for. Zephyr, be careful when I'm not around. Call me if you're in trouble. Chen Zhao and Portia had both left. Only Zephyr was left in the house. Zephyr took out her phone. "Ilux, it's me. Zevra, how are you now? Your injuries seem to be very serious." "It's all right. I've received professional treatment," Zephyr said. "How's your injury?" "I'm fine. My luck is better than yours." It had to be said that Ilux's luck was indeed better than Thera's. They were all using shadow cloaks and were standing together. But when they were hit, the damage was different. Of course, apart from luck, another important reason was that Ilux was an enhancer. His constitution was much higher than Zephyr's. "How is it? Did you find any useful information?" "I've investigated the situation of the Los Angeles area's supernatural world. There are 2 or 3 local supernatural organizations in Los Angeles, but they're all small fries that aren't worth mentioning. However, there's one thing that's very strange. The Los Angeles area's supernatural world seems to be very xenophobic. Other than these small fries, if there are any foreign spiritualists who are active here, they'll definitely be severely punished. Even if they don't do evil, they'll most likely be expelled. If they commit serious crimes here, they'll definitely disappear without a trace." Electrolux said. "Who did it?" "I don't know who did it, but in any case, the supernatural world of Los Angeles is definitely not as simple as it looks on the surface. It's very likely that there's a hidden expert, and it might even be the work of the dragon race that hibernated here. It can't be the dragon race. Whether it's an ordinary dragon race or an evil dragon, they wouldn't care about the activities of a human shaman unless it involves their own interests." Zephyr speculated. "What about the paranormal organization that you've investigated? Are they possible?" "One of them is an idle organization. They don't have any close organizations or activities. They usually conduct some small activities in the L.A. area, like a small competition or a meeting," Ilux said. "The other 2 organizations are related to the government. One of them has been established for more than 20 years, but it's very weak. It can't even deal with a small haunted community. The other organization has been established for a shorter period of time, and its strength is below average. The strongest one should be Brits, who's known as the Little Encyclopedia of Magic. He's quite famous in North America. I once met him during a supernatural event. His strength is also very average. These 3 organizations can basically be eliminated. Is there no more information? I've investigated a few spiritualists, but the strongest one is barely average. There's no one stronger than that. There aren't any spiritualists with extraordinary strength? No, but I've investigated the local spiritualists. They said that 2 years ago, someone in the L.A. area awakened the 3rd night. I just don't know what happened to the 3rd night." "Oh? Awakened the 3rd night? If it's successful, then it should be very powerful, right?" "No one knows who awakened it. Until now, no one has heard of a particularly powerful spiritualist, or a genius. Give up on this direction. Don't investigate in this direction anymore. We're looking for dragons, not spiritualists. Dragons don't need to awaken," Thera said. "Other than that, there's no other information?" "There's still some immature information. We need to dig deeper." "All right then. Continue investigating. If you find any clues, contact me immediately." Chapter 1959. "Portia, did you lose him?" "Boss, you're driving a supercar, and I'm driving a second-hand car. Why do you think my car can keep up with yours?" Portia asked, annoyed. "I'm not driving very fast. I'm only driving 80 kilometers per hour. You should go first. It'll only take 10 minutes at most to reach Minghui Villa." "Fine." Chen Zhao hung up. He could already see Minghui Villa. Portia wasn't driving very fast, but she wasn't falling behind by much. Portia's car had also reached the highway. Suddenly, the car in front slowed down. Portia couldn't turn in time and rear-ended the car in front. Portia immediately stopped the car. The car in front that was rear-ended also stopped. Portia was burning with anger, But when she saw that it was a woman who got out of the car in front, she calmed down a little. "How did you drive?" Portia asked the woman. "The speed limit is at least 80 kilometers per hour. Why did you suddenly slow down?" "I'm sorry. I think there's something wrong with my car." The woman looked at Portia innocently. "I'll take responsibility for this accident. Can you lend me your phone? I'll call the insurance company." "Fine." The woman didn't argue and even admitted her mistake. Portia's anger also dissipated. She took out her phone and gave it to the woman. The phone lit up in the woman's hand for a moment, then dimmed again. "Is the phone broken?" The woman returned the phone to Portia. "Let me see. It really is broken. Strange. It was fine just now. Why did it suddenly break?" She had just spoken to Qin Zhao on the phone. Why did it suddenly break? Portia wondered if she didn't pay attention to the battery just now and it ran out of battery. "Where's your phone?" Portia asked. The woman took out her phone. The screen was already cracked. Clearly, it couldn't be used anymore. "When I rear-ended the car, it fell to the ground and I accidentally stepped on it." "I see. Then let's go to my boss's house and borrow his phone," Portia said. "Your boss? Is it far from here?" "No. See that house on the cliff? It's there." "What a big house. Your boss must be rich, right?" "Of course, only rich people can hire me." Portia rolled her eyes. "Get in my car." In the car, Portia looked at the woman beside her again. The woman was very tall, about 1.85 meters. She was also very beautiful, and her clothes were very tasteful. She looked like a model. "What's your name?" "Chui Xin." Portia brought Chui Xin into the Bright Moon Villa. By now, Qin Zhao had already changed into a t-shirt and boxers. He was lying on the living room sofa, playing with his phone. Qin Zhao's children were running and playing in the living room. Among so many children, only Didi La was reading quietly. Even little Larissa was busy climbing up and down the princess's body with Briar, Bramble, Simba, and Nana. The princess's mountain-like body was enough for the 5 of them to move around. Just then, Portia walked into the living room with Trish. Qin Zhao put down his phone and looked up at the 2 girls. "Portia, who is she?" Qin Zhao was very curious. Portia was right behind him. How could she bring a woman back so quickly? "Boss, I rear-ended her car. My phone is out of battery, and her phone is broken too. She's here to call the insurance company and then leave." Qin Zhao stared at Chui Xin, whose expression was a bit stiff. "Sir, is there something on my face?" Driz had to be nervous, because there was a dragon's head in the yard. Even the most arrogant dragon slayer wouldn't dare to treat a dragon's head like a decoration. But this guy had actually placed the dragon's head in the yard so openly. Regardless of whether this man was too arrogant, or he really had the ability, Chui Xin's hair stood on end. At least it meant that Saint and didn't lie to her. This man really had the ability to make one's hair stand on end. Qin Zhao stared straight at Chui Xin. "Boss, don't you know that it's very rude to look at a woman like that? I'll let it go this time. Don't bring strangers to my house next time." Qin Zhao looked away. He didn't find anything strange about Chui Xin. Chui Xin secretly heaved a sigh of relief, somewhat regretting her rashness. She'd originally thought that sneaking in to find out Qin Zhao's strength would be a piece of cake. But when she faced Qin Zhao, she realized how much pressure he gave her. Even though Qin Zhao had looked away, he still used his small world to monitor Chui Xin from all directions. Because of this, Chui Xin felt like her hair stood on end. They both had their own small worlds, but their abilities were very different. Chui Xin didn't even dare to move. She was sure that if she moved even a little, this human man would kill her directly. This human man would directly kill her, pull out her tendons and peel off her skin. He would also place her head in the yard like a trophy. She even had to control her heartbeat so that it wouldn't beat too fast. After a while, Chui Xin finished her call and Portia saw her off. Chui Xin didn't even say goodbye to Qin Zhao. She hurriedly left Minghui Villa. Qin Zhao suddenly jumped up from the sofa. There was something wrong with that woman. The ring that the woman was wearing was different from the one he was wearing. But it was definitely the same as his magic ring. It was used to suppress aura. Qin Zhao hurried to the entrance of Mingwei Villa and saw Portia return. "Boss, why did you come out? Where's that woman?" "She left." "What do you want to do to her?" "Boss, you already have a child with Miss Fei Lai. You better control yourself." "What nonsense!" Qin Zhao's expression darkened. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to catch up to that woman. "Don't bring strangers to Mingwei Villa in the future," Qin Zhao said. Portia pouted. "Boss, didn't I stop you from making mistakes? Do you have to be so stingy?" "That woman isn't a good person. You don't look like a good person either," Portia said bluntly. "Let me have a look at your phone." "What's wrong with my phone?" Portia handed it to Qin Zhao. When Qin Zhao took the phone, he indeed felt a magical aura from it. But as he took the phone, the magical aura was dispelled. He turned it on again, and the phone lit up again. "That woman tampered with your phone. She purposely entered Mingwei Villa." You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.